as the melt accelerates. Our teammate Aprila Kising Lama looks into it more.
Glaciers in the Hindu Kush Himalaya are melting at an alarming and accelerating rate, raising serious concerns for water security across Asia. A new study by the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, ICMOD, shows that ice loss in the region has doubled since 2000. The study says glaciers have thinned by up to 27 meters since 1975. The region, often called Asia's water tower, contains more than 63,700 glaciers spread across roughly 55,782 square kilometers, feeding at least 10 major river systems that support nearly 2 billion people. The report shows that glacier decline has been persistent and widespread. Over the past 50 years, around 89% of observed years recorded a net loss in glacier mass, indicating a long-term and consistent downward trend. Between 1990 and 2020 alone, glaciers in the region lost about 12% of their total area and 9% of their ice reserves. Smaller glaciers are shrinking the fastest, increasing immediate risks of water shortages and glacial lake outburst floods. The impact is not uniform. Some eastern mountain areas have lost up to 33% of glacier coverage in just 3 decades. Meanwhile, the largest overall losses are concentrated in the Indus, Ganges, and Brahmaputra basins, where over 74% of the region's glaciers are located. Larger glaciers, those exceeding 10 square kilometers, store around 40% of the region's total water reserves, making their decline a major long-term threat. Scientists warn that areas between 4,500 and 6,000 meters are highly vulnerable to rising temperatures, and impacts are already visible through more frequent flooding during monsoon seasons. For Nepal, this trajectory means increased risks to mountain communities, hydropower infrastructure, and water supply, as faster glacier melt heightens both short-term flood dangers and long-term water insecurity.
The US dollar rate has surged to 150 rupees in Nepal. According to Nepal Rashtra Bank, the buying rate for a US dollar is set at 149.64 rupees, while the selling rate stands at 150.24 rupees, 24. The euro is trading at 173.12 rupees for buying and 173 rupees 81 paisa for selling. The British pound sterling is quoted at 200 rupees 38 paisa for buying and 201 rupees 19 paisa for selling. Meanwhile, the Australian dollar is valued at 105 rupees 89 paisa for buying and 106 rupees 31 paisa for selling. The Canadian dollar is fixed at 109 rupees 4 paisa for buying and 109 rupees 48 paisa for selling. As per the Nepal Rashtra Bank, the rates reflect current international market trends and domestic demand. The sharp rise in the US dollar highlights growing pressure on Nepal's foreign exchange market. Now, Nepal's endangered Kisan community, primarily based in Jhapa district, continues to face deep-rooted challenges in accessing basic rights and service despite constitutional protections. With a population of just 1,479, many members remain unregistered in official records, leaving them excluded from essential services such as citizenship, documentation, education, and healthcare. Although the government provides a monthly social security allowance to marginalized groups, including the Kisan community, members say financial support alone has not significantly improved their living conditions. Long-standing social exclusion and gaps in policy implementation have made it difficult for the community to achieve meaningful inclusion in society. As Nepal pushes for greater social justice, questions remain over when the voices of the Kisan people will be fully represented in national policy making. The 27th Flora Expo is currently underway at Prikuti Mandap. under the slogan Flower Business for Clean Environment, Employment and Economic Prosperity, aiming to boost Nepal's flower industry and future exports. The exhibition showcases seasonal and cut flowers, compost fertilizers, seeding, drip irrigation systems and modern agricultural tools, providing both commercial opportunities and technical knowledge for visitors. Nepal's floriculture sector spans 270 hectares across 52 districts, attracting over 8.83 billion rupees in investment and generating employment for more than 53,500 people. Yet flower imports worth 127 million rupees continue to flow into the country. Organized by the Floriculture Association Nepal, the expo features 83 stalls including 65 commercial outlets and is expected to attract around 60,000 visitors, generating an estimated turnover of 215 million rupees. The event highlights efforts to expand the domestic flower business, promote economic development and provide guidance on flower cultivation, gardening and care of both enthusiasts and entrepreneurs. Time now for international update, but before that, let's take a short break. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World Primetime News and it's time for our international updates. Now, Iran reportedly launched 2 missiles at the joint UK-US military base on Diego Garcia. Though the attack was unsuccessful and occurred before the UK announced expanded American use of its bases. At the same time, Iran said its Natanz nuclear facility had been targeted again, but assured there was no risk to nearby populations. Iran's foreign minister expressed doubt that the US intends to de-escalate despite President Trump suggesting the possibility of winding down the conflict. Meanwhile, the U.S. announced it would temporarily lift sanctions on Iranian oil stranded at sea in an effort to stabilize global energy prices amid the ongoing tensions. A new analysis by the Center of Strategic and International Studies and the BBC finds that Iranian missile and drone strike on U.S. military infrastructure in the Middle East caused around $800 million worth of damage in the first 2 weeks of the conflict, much of it in the initial retaliatory strikes after the US and Israel launched the war. These strikes hit air defense radars, satellite communications, buildings and other infrastructures in countries like Jordan and the United Arab Emirates, with some bases struck more than once. Experts say the figure is likely an undercount since some damage to sensitive equipment isn't fully known. The conflict has also caused U.S. military casualties and wider regional economic impacts, including disruptions to energy markets as the wider war continues. In the other news, foreign ministers from 12 Arab and Islamic states met in Riyadh to address regional tensions, urging Iran to halt attacks and condemning Israel's expansionist policy. The ministers representing countries including Saudi Arabia, Egypt and Pakistan emphasized respect for sovereignty, non-interference and international law. They warned Iran that continued aggression would deepen isolation and incur political cost, while affirming support for Lebanon's territorial integrity and state-controlled weapons. The meeting follows heightened regional tensions after U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran and subsequent Iranian attacks on regional and Western interests. Ministers pledged ongoing coordination to protect security and stability. On Friday, Marking Nowruz, Iran's supreme leader Mojtaba Khamenei outlined a New Year slogan promoting a resistant economy in light of national unity and national security. He expressed condolences for recent conflicts, praised the unity of Iranians, and highlighted the need to strengthen infrastructure, public welfare, and regional relations, including with Afghanistan and Pakistan. Khamenei warned against Israeli false flag operations. Meanwhile, President Masoud Pezeshkian stated that Iran did not seek war with neighbors, blamed the US and Israel for tensions, and proposed a regional Islamic security framework to ensure peace and stability. Thousands of Iranians gather for Eid al-Fitr prayers despite ongoing war with the US and Israel, with the new supreme leader staying out of public view and other officials leading ceremonies. At the same time, the conflict escalated with US and Israeli strikes hitting Iran's Natanz nuclear facility, though no radiation leaks were reported. The war, now several weeks in, has disrupted global energy markets, driven up oil prices, and strained international relations. The US says it may soon scale back operations, but is also deploying more troops, suggesting possible further escalation. Meanwhile, fighting continues across the region, including strikes in Iran, Israel, and Lebanon, showing the conflict is still intensifying despite talk of winding down. Let's take a short break here. We'll be back with more from Welcome back. You're watching NTV World Primetime News. Now, South Korean authorities say 11 people were killed when a huge fire engulfed a car parts plant on the central city of Daejeon. 3 others are still missing and 59 were injured. A video shows huge flames and thick smoke pouring from the building, with firefighters struggling to contain the blaze. There were 170 workers inside when it broke out. Firefighters say they were unable to enter the structure earlier due to concerns it would collapse. There was also a risk of igniting sodium stored there. An overnight search began for those missing after the building was deemed safe to enter. Authorities did not immediately confirm the cause of the blaze but said it appeared to have spread rapidly. In the other news, on Friday, India's patent expiration on semaglutide, the active ingredient in drugs like Ozempic, opened the door for low-cost generic versions. Indian pharmaceutical firms prepared launches immediately, potentially offering more than 50 brands and drastically reducing monthly cost from $161 to $236 to around $60. Clinics in Mumbai reported expectation of a surge in patients seeking treatment. Experts say cheaper access could benefit middle-income countries, including much of Africa, though they caution that obesity requires broader prevention efforts beyond medication. India's move marked a major shift in global obesity treatment access. A landmark trial is underway over whether social media platforms like Meta and YouTube are responsible for addicting a youth user in harming her mental health. The injury has begun considering damages, suggesting they may believe the platforms were negligently designed or failed to warn users. The case centers on a 20-year-old woman who says Instagram and YouTube fueled her depression and suicidal thoughts from a young age, though the defense points to family issues as another cause. Jurors must decide if the platforms were a substantial factor and how much they should pay. The outcome could set a major precedent for hundreds of similar lawsuits, challenging long-standing legal protections and raising broader concerns about the impact of social media on vulnerable youth. Time for sports. The Prime Minister's Cup National One-Day Men's Cricket Tournament, one of Nepal's premier domestic cricket competitions, has officially kicked off in Madhya Province. Organised by Cricket Association of Nepal (CAN), the tournament showcases top provincial teams, departmental clubs providing a platform for emerging talents to compete at a national level. The tournament was inaugurated by Minister for Sports Basant Kushwaha, who highlighted the government's plans to prioritize sports infrastructure, including the construction of a new stadium in Janakpur, a city with growing interest in cricket. Heavy rainfall disrupted the opening day's matches, with Karnali versus Lumini Province in Birganj halted after just 7 overs and Kosi versus Madhya Province in Janakpur cancelled entirely. All 4 teams were awarded 1 point each. The tournament not only promotes competitive cricket but also encourages regional representation, with teams from provinces and key departmental clubs such as Tribhuvan Army Club and Nepal Police Club participating. On the second day, Tribhuvan Army Club faces Nepal Police Club, with Bagmati Province takes on the Armed Police Force Club at Mulpani Cricket Ground, with the champions set to receive a ₹1 million cash prize, reflecting the tournament's significance in Nepal's cricket calendar. Nepal's long-distance runner Binod Rokaya of the Tribhuvan Army Club has won the 3rd edition of the Peace Marathon, a 42-kilometer race held in Lumbini, the birthplace of Lord Buddha and UNESCO World Heritage Site. Rokaya completed the full marathon in 2 hours, 17 minutes and 55 seconds, narrowly ahead of fellow Tribhuvan Army Club athlete Sushil Kumar Shahi, while Narendra Singh Raut secured 3rd place, marking a clean sweep for the departmental team. The international field saw China's Wang Chi finish 4th and Kenya's Julius Marukui Waham place 5th, highlighting the event's growing global participation. In the women's half marathon, Purna Lakshmi Neopane of the Tribhuvan Army Club claimed victory, following by Santoshi Shrestha and Nisha Sarki, reinforcing Nepal's strength in distance running. Organized by the Nepal Olympic Committee with support from government and international partners, the event also featured a 5-kilometer peace walk inaugurated by senior officials, promoting sports tourism and Nepal's message of peace to a global audience. This brings us to the end of the news bulletin, but before we wrap up, let's take a reminder of the headlines. Unseasonal rain and hail disrupt life across Nepal. Landslides, blocked highways and stranded passengers highlight pre-monsoon weather challenges. Nepal marks Eid al-Fitr with nationwide public holiday. Muslim community celebrates with the festival with prayers, charity and festive gatherings. Rashtriya Swatantra Party moves to form government in Nepal. Unconventional leadership model sees Balin Shah as PM and Ravi Labichan leading party affairs. Iran launches missile strikes on Diego Garcia and Natanz. Regional conflict escalates as US and Israel respond amid rising global tensions. Deadly fire at southern Korean car parts plant killed 11 dozen injured and several missing as firefighters battle blaze in Beijing. Prime Minister's Cup Cricket Tournament kicks off in Madhya Province. Rain disrupts opening matches as top provincial and departmental teams compete. That's it for this edition of NTV World Primetime News. Our next bulletin will be at 2200 hours Nepal time. Do join us through our social media and get the latest updates from our official website, nepaltelevision.com. Thank you for staying with us. Have a wonderful evening ahead.
Welcome to the studios of NTV World in Kathmandu. Public Service Broadcasting PSB Nepal's new initiative to make Nepal more visible and audible to the global audience. Welcome on board.
This is NTV World, facts that speak, insights that matter.
Telling the stories of a changing planet. NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Exploring the heartbeat of Nepali creativity. This is NTV World.
The power of story shaped by technology. NTV World.
Unearthing Nepal's hidden heritage. Discovering the timeless Nepal.
Telling stories that endure across centuries. Where culture breathes, stories bloom.
When the world moves, we make a sense of it.
NTV World. Taste of Nepal. Every recipe, every flavor tells the story.
Journalism in the digital age. Fast, focused, verified.
Stories hold power. Stories reflecting life. Stories of the hinterlands. Reporting for NTV World.
This is NTV World. Welcome to News Hour.
This is NTV World. Welcome to Primetime News.
One story at a time.
Crossing borders, connecting voices, where Nepal meets the world in dialogue. This is NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Voices that connect Nepal to the world, bringing perspective, region and relevance to every story. NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Stand by. Mic is on.
3, 2, 1, cue.
We are NTV World.
What if I told you a story of a place shrouded in mystery and steeped in stones? A place where warriors were born and raised and their path through the mountains still remain to this day. Ajirkot Gorkha, the unbeaten kingdom.
हामी पाहुनाहरू आउनु हुँदाखेरि हामी यसरी स्वागत गर्छौं अनि अलि नाचगानहरू पनि देखाउँछौं गर्व लाग्छ जन्मिएछु साँच्चै स्वर्गमा म त नेपालकी छोरी भन्छन् गोर्खाली नाचहरू जस्तो घाटु चुड्काहरू भन्ने चाहिँ विशेष गरी हुन्छ यहाँ
For those seeking a luxurious escape, there are stunning lodges that offer an indulgent retreat amidst the rugged beauty of this place. But for the true adventurers, this place has it all. From trekking through dense forest of Nagepokari trails to exploring ancient temples and learning the rich history of the region. So, what do you fancy? Are you the solo explorer, or do you prefer luxury within nature? Or perhaps you are the one who seeks to witness it all. Well, after all, life is a box of chocolates, and this place is filled with surprises. Welcome to the place where magic and reality intertwine, where the wonders of nature are both breathtaking and awe-inspiring. From the elevations of 300 meters to a towering 8,000 meters, this place will leave you mesmerized and in awe.
This is The World This Week, your weekly roundup of the latest international events and updates. This is me, Bhavana Casey. In this edition, we bring you the stories making headlines across the globe, from geopolitical tensions and major political developments to cultural celebrations and remarkable human feats. We have all that you need. Let's begin with the Middle East, where tensions continue to escalate, raising concerns about regional stability and global security. Heightened tensions continue to sweep the Middle East as missile and drone strikes hit countries including Israel, Iran and Gulf states, raising fears of a wider regional conflict. Amid the unrest, all leaders are calling for restraint, while Iran has warned that foreign military involvement could be seen as a participation in aggression. Both Israel and Iran continue to strike at each other, with Israeli airstrikes hitting Tehran as Iranians observed Nowruz, the Persian New Year, while Tehran and allied forces responded with missile and drone attacks across the Gulf region. Civilian casualties have been reported, and emergency services in Tehran and surrounding areas have been stretched as residents cope with both festivities and the violence. The escalation follows weeks of cross-border hostilities, including Iranian attacks on energy infrastructure in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. Kuwait's Mina al-Ahmadi oil refinery was damaged after a drone strike, further underscoring the broader regional impact of the conflict. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told reporters that Israel will hold off attacks on Iranian gas fields after being asked to by U.S. President Donald Trump, signaling a temporary pause in the offensive operations.
For one, Israel acted alone against the Slogan gas compound. Fact number two, President Trump asked us to hold off on future attacks, and we're holding out. The death cult in Iran is trying to blackmail the world by closing a key international maritime route, the Straits of Hormuz. It won't work. Israel is helping in its own way, and intel and other means, the American effort to open the Straits of Hormuz, rather.
Meanwhile, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps confirms that General Ali Mohammad Naini, its spokesperson, has been killed in an Israeli-U.S. missile attack. The death comes after a series of high-profile killings targeting senior Iranian military and intelligence officials, including Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, Ali Larijani, former head of the Supreme National Security Council, and Saliha Ashadi, a senior intelligence official at the General Staff. Both sides have launched missile barrages, air operations, and drone strikes, raising global energy market concerns and international calls for de-escalation. The ongoing strikes represent one of the most dramatic escalations in the Iran-Israel conflict to date, heightening fears of a broader regional war and disruption to global energy supplies. Global oil prices have jumped as escalating tensions in the Middle East disrupt traffic through the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz, creating a major supply squeeze. The International Energy Agency has warned that the conflict is creating supply disruption in the oil market, heightening concerns over the global energy stability. Executive Director of the International Energy Agency (IEA), Fatia Birol, says the volume of oil supply now offline is already higher than the supply loss during the oil shock of 1973 and higher than any of the big disruptions witnessed since then, as oil prices jump further above $100 per barrel and Asian stocks mostly fall. His remarks came as the Iran war moves into a third week, with both sides showing no sign of backing down and diplomats trying to ensure safe passage for tankers through the crucial Strait of Hormuz.
The war in the Middle East is creating the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. The volume of oil supply now offline is already higher than the supply loss during the oil shock of 1973 and higher than any of the big disruptions we have witnessed since then.
It is said the single most important thing for a return to stable flows of oil and gas is the resumption of the transit through the Strait of Hormuz. The IEA members agreed last week to release a record 400 million barrels from stockpiles to cushion the surge in prices caused by the war.
IEA countries are making around 400 million barrels of oil available to the market to offset the supply lost from the effective closure of Strait of Hormuz. This quick action by the IEA had a calming impact on markets. Oil prices today are significantly lower than they were 1 week ago. But while our stock release can provide a buffer for now, it is not a lasting solution.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump continues to call on other nations, particularly NATO allies, to help secure the Strait of Hormuz, a key oil shipping route. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi met with U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington as Tokyo signals for support for reopening the Strait of Hormuz, even as Trump's reference to the Pearl Harbor attack stirred surprise during their discussions on Iran and regional security. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi met with U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House to discuss the escalating Iran conflict and security in the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz, a key route for global energy supplies. Days after lashing out at U.S. allies, including Japan, for failing to heed his calls to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz, Trump praised Tokyo's efforts related to the Middle East war in vague terms. The talks also addressed the ongoing tension following Israeli strikes on Iran's South Pars gas field and retaliatory attacks on Gulf energy sites. Both leaders stressed the importance of cooperation and communication to prevent further escalation.
But honestly, Japan, China, Europe, parts of Europe get a lot of their oil through the strait. We get none, practically. We're less than 1%. We don't have to be any percent. We don't even. I think we do it just to be nice. But we think of it. We don't use the strait. We're defending the strait for everybody else. And then in the case of NATO, they don't want to help us defend the strait, and they're the ones that need it. Look, I expect Japan to step up because, we have that kind of relationship. And we step up for Japan. We have 45,000 soldiers in Japan. We spend a lot of money on Japan. So
during the meeting, Takaichi emphasized Japan's commitment to dialogue and regional stability, highlighting the country's efforts to maintain calm relations with China while supporting international cooperation on energy and security.
日本はいつも中国に対してオープンです。会話はオープンにしています。それから冷静に対応しています。で、とにかく米中関係も含めてですね、これが地域の安定、それから世界のサプライチェーン、これに貢献するものであることを願っています。日本は常にオープンです。
The White House described the meeting as a demonstration of U.S.-Japan strategic coordination, balancing Japan's pacifist stance with the need to safeguard regional security and global energy flows. Amid the ongoing Middle East crisis, attacks targeting United Nations peacekeepers in Lebanon have raised concerns over security in volatile areas, underscoring the persistent risk faced by international forces working to maintain peace and stability. UN Chief Antonio Guterres says that attacks against peacekeepers in Lebanon may constitute war crimes. The United Nations chief made the remarks while addressing the safety of international peacekeeping forces operating in the country. He warned that targeting peacekeepers is a serious violation of international law and emphasized the need to ensure their protection.
Attacks against peacekeepers and positions are completely unacceptable and they must stop. They are in breach of international law and may constitute war crimes.
Guterres also called for accountability for any attacks against peacekeeping personnel and stressed the importance of respecting the mandates of UN missions deployed to maintain stability and security in the region. The UN chief also called for intensified diplomatic efforts to prevent further escalation and restore stability in Lebanon. Guterres said that diplomatic avenues are available to stop the war in Lebanon.
Stop the fighting. Stop the bombing. There is no military solution. Only diplomacy, dialogue, and full implementation of the UN Charter and Security Council resolutions. The diplomatic avenues are available.
The UN chief's remarks come amid rising cross-border tensions and ongoing clashes that have raised concerns about a broader conflict in the region. Muslim worshippers gathered and performed Eid al-Fitr prayers at the Grand Mosque in Mecca, marking the end of the holy month of Ramadan. The gathering reflects unity and spiritual renewal among millions of Muslims celebrating one of Islam's most important festivals. Under the shadow of the Middle East conflict, thousands of Muslim worshippers gathered at the Grand Mosque in Mecca to perform Eid al-Fitr prayers, marking the end of the holy month of Ramadan. The massive congregation, one of the largest of the year, reflected the deep religious devotion of attendees from across Saudi Arabia and around the world. The prayers were accompanied by sermons emphasizing unity, charity, and spiritual renewal, central tenets of Ramadan. Pilgrims and local residents participated in ritualistic prayers, communal gatherings, and celebratory activities, reinforcing social bonds and shared faith. Eid al-Fitr, one of the most important festivals in Islam, is observed with feasting, charity, and family gatherings. In Mecca, the celebrations drew thousands of international visitors, highlighting the city's status as the spiritual heart of Islam and a global center for Muslim worship. The event underscores both the religious significance and the cultural vibrancy of the festival, as millions of Muslims worldwide mark the occasion with devotion, joy, and reflection. A Chinese naval escort fleet has conducted training exercises in regional waters, demonstrating enhanced combat readiness and maritime security capabilities. China's 40th Naval Escort Task Force recently conducted multi-subject training exercises in the Gulf of Aden to strengthen its operational readiness and mission execution capabilities in one of the world's most piracy-prone maritime regions. The drills carried out in waters known for past pirate activity were designed to simulate real combat scenarios and test the fleet's rapid response, coordinated deployment, and precision firepower. The exercise began with the main gun firing order, initiating a series of anti-piracy and escort mission training activities. The training focused on responding to potential maritime threats and improving the fleet's ability to protect commercial shipping routes and conduct long-distance escort missions. The exercise also aimed to strengthen operational coordination among crew members while operating under complex sea and air conditions in the Gulf of Aden. Such conditions provide a realistic environment for naval personnel to refine tactics and improve readiness for real-world maritime security operations. China has maintained a regular naval presence in the Gulf of Aden for escort missions and anti-piracy operations, contributing to international maritime security and the protection of global shipping lanes. The latest drills are intended to further enhance the fleet's ability to carry out long-range missions while supporting stability and safety in international waters. Snow-covered landscapes across Turkey have transformed vast regions into scenic winter vistas, drawing visitors while highlighting the seasonal impact on daily life and travel. Snow-covered landscapes have transformed Eider Plateau into a striking winter scene as snowfall continues across the highland destination in the northeastern Turkey. Located in Rize province, the plateau is known for its traditional wooden houses and scenic mountain environment. Recent snowfall has blanketed the plateau's forest, rooftops and surrounding landscapes, creating a prominent winter view across the area. Light snowfall and cold weather conditions have continued to affect the plateau in recent days. Intermittent snow has increased snow depth to approximately 60 centimeters in some parts of the highland region. The accumulation of snow has covered the plateau's forest and traditional structures in white, significantly altering the landscape and highlighting the area's natural features during the winter season. Sri Lanka's traditional practice of tapping sweet sap from kithul palm has gained international recognition after UNESCO inscribed it as intangible cultural heritage of humanity, showcasing the nation's rich cultural legacy.
A traditional rural industry in Sri Lanka has gained renewed attention after its recent recognition by UNESCO. But workers say deep-rooted social barriers continue to limit its growth. In village communities across the country, kithul tapping, the process of extracting sap from the kithul palm, remains a centuries-old practice. The sap is boiled into treacle, a caramel-colored syrup widely used to enhance desserts and traditional dishes. When further reduced, the syrup becomes jaggery, a mineral-rich palm sugar considered a healthier alternative to refined white sugar due to its lower glycemic index. The UNESCO inscription has brought global visibility to the craft, which supports thousands of rural livelihoods. However, despite the recognition, the industry continues to face stigma in Sri Lanka's caste-conscious society, where kithul tapping is often viewed as a low-status occupation. It is said the international spotlight could help improve both demand and working conditions, but meaningful change will depend on shifting long-held social attitudes as well as increased investment in rural production networks. Officials have indicated that further support measures may be introduced to promote the sector, positioning kithul products for both domestic consumption and export markets.
Birds of prey are returning to the Chinese city of Beijing as improving environmental conditions and conservation efforts signal a positive shift in the city's ecological health.
Golden eagles and white-tailed eagles have been spotted with unusual frequency around Beijing's outskirts last winter and this spring, drawing crowds of photographers eager to capture rare images of the large raptors. In Fangshan district, dozens of enthusiasts gathered by the roadside to photograph the golden eagles. Species such as the golden eagle and white-tailed sea eagle were traditionally believed to inhabit only the remote deep forest of Greater Khingan Mountains and the Lesser Khingan Mountains in northeast China. Seeing them in Beijing is truly unexpected, said Yang Gensuo, a photographer from Heilongjiang province, northeast China. At the Shiyu Reservoir in Pinggu district, more than a dozen white-tailed eagles became the focus of nearly 100 cameras. Local bird watchers said that white-tailed eagles now arrive at the reservoir each December and stay until mid-March. This season, 18 have been recorded wintering here. The growing number of sightings of birds of prey in Beijing's outskirts should be attributed to improved ecological conditions and reduced human disturbances in recent years, according to the bird experts.
A large number of Hindu devotees packed the streets of a southern Mumbai neighborhood to celebrate the Gudi Padwa festival, which marks New Year in the western Indian state of Maharashtra. The festival heralds the arrival of spring and is celebrated with colorful decorations, street processions and dancing, along with food and prayers. Thousands of Hindu devotees thronged the streets of southern Mumbai in India to celebrate Gudi Padwa, the traditional New Year festival of Maharashtra, marking the arrival of spring and the start of a fresh year in the regional Hindu calendar. The festival was celebrated with vibrant street processions, music, dancing and prayers as residents decorated homes with colorful flags, floral motifs and traditional symbols of prosperity. Devotees visited temples, offered rituals, and participated in communal celebrations, while local markets bustled with people buying festive foods and decorations. Gudi Padwa is not only a religious observance but also a celebration of renewal and community spirit, blending centuries-old customs with contemporary festivities. The event reflects Maharashtra's rich cultural heritage, bringing together families and neighbors to welcome the new year with joy, devotion, and togetherness. The Spanish city of Valencia celebrated the last day of a local festival where massive satirical sculptures known as fallas fill the streets before being burned to mark the beginning of a new season.
The Spanish city of Valencia celebrated the final day of its world-famous Las Fallas festival as massive satirical sculptures, known as fallas, filled the streets before being set ablaze to mark the beginning of a new season. The festival, which attracts thousands of residents and tourists, is renowned for its blend of artistry, humor, and social commentary, with the sculptures often reflecting political events, cultural trends, and public figures. Streets were packed with spectators enjoying parades, fireworks, and traditional music, while local authorities ensured safety during the controlled burning of the towering creations. The festival dates back several centuries, is a both celebration of creativity and a ritual of renewal, drawing international attention and showcasing Valencia's rich cultural heritage. For many, the event is a symbolic farewell to winter and a festive welcome to spring, highlighting the city's unique traditions and communal spirit.
The Oscars 2026 were dominated by one battle after another, which won Best Picture and led the night with multiple awards, while Sinners followed closely with major wins, including Best Actor for Michael B. Jordan. One Battle After Another, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, was the biggest winner at this year's Academy Awards, taking home 6 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Film Editing, Best Production Design, and Best Original Score. In acting categories, Jess E. Buckley won Best Actress for her performance in Hamnet, becoming the first Irish winner in the category. Michael B. Jordan took Best Actor for Sinners. Sean Penn and Amy Madigan won Supporting Acting honors. Another historic moment came when cinematographer Autumn Durrell won Best Cinematography for Sinners, becoming the first woman to receive the award. Other notable winners included movies such as Frankenstein, K-pop Demon Hunters, and Avatar: Fire and Ash, which were recognized across technical and creative categories. The ceremony highlighted several milestones, underscoring the growing recognition of diverse talent across the movie industry. Well, this coverage on Oscar night's biggest wins and highlights brings us to the end of this episode of The World This Week. We hope you enjoyed as much as we did bringing it to you. We shall see you again next week with a new episode. Also, do follow us on our website www.nepaltelevision.com, our social media handles, as well as our YouTube channel. Till then, take care and bye-bye.
This is Geopod on NTV World. I'm Shivani Thapa Bosnath, and in this episode, we ask questions on democracy. Around the world, democracy is busy but uneasy. Elections are frequent, participation remains high, yet direction, stability, and trust are increasingly elusive. This is not a crisis of turnout, it is believed to be a crisis of consequence. And Nepal sits squarely inside this moment. A decade after a new constitution promised stability and inclusion, the country faces fragile coalitions, judicial interventions, and a public, especially its youth, growing impatient with politics itself. Elections are approaching at the moment, but confidence in what they will resolve is thin. Here at Geopod, we step back from personalities, from daily headlines, to ask a harder, more uncomfortable question. Is Nepal's instability a failure of leadership or a flaw in democratic design? And joining us in this crucial conversation is political analyst, author, Dr. Chandradev Bhatta. Welcome, Dr. Bhatta, to Geopod.
Thank you very much for inviting me to your important show.
Yeah, the pleasure is all ours. And before we move ahead and start judging the outcomes, Dr. Bhatta, let's define the system itself in our conversation. When you look at Nepal today, right, what, not in theory, but in practice, what kind of democracy has Nepal become? A majoritarian, a consensus-driven, or something more improvised?
Thank you very much. I think this is a very important question for us, primarily because Nepal has been practicing democracy for a long period of time. If you look at, we have a history of more than 70 years of practicing democracy. But during these 70 years, we have also seen many ups and downs. We have seen series of movement. Nepal has seen series, came up with different types of constitutions as well. But still, we talk about democracy, whether democracy is stable or are there any problems. I see if you look at from the perspective of a constitution today, Nepal is a constitutional democracy. Nepal is there are a lot of issues that Nepal needs to look into, but if you look at the actual state of democracy in Nepal, we are somehow practicing the consensus model of democracy. We also have to look into the constitution itself, because the current constitutions basically asks Nepal to move into the consensual model of democracy, primarily because it also, it's a diverse country. There are different types of people, different types of ethnicity. People have different types of opinions as well, language. We are a diverse state, and perhaps this could be the reason that our constitution puts a lot of emphasis on adopting the model which tries to bring all people together. At the same time, we also have got the proportional representation model. The very idea of these two models is to get all the people on board, so that democracy is not only owned by the certain political leaders or certain political parties, but it is owned by the people at large. That's the basic premises of the constitution. But in practice, I don't think we are really moving into the right direction. This is very, I think we have to accept this reality. We did not really practice the democracy as it has been envisioned in the constitution. Somehow, I would say, to answer your question whether Nepal is a consensual model of democracy or a majoritarian, I would say it's an electoral democracy, primarily because the democracy itself has been, I think it would be too harsh to say, people may not agree with this, but of late it has been hijacked by the professional political class, through elections. And this is not only happening in Nepal, but it's happening all over the world. That's why we see a lot of disenchantment towards democracy everywhere in the world. It has nothing to do with the system per se, but it's the way it has been practiced.
So you would say this is largely an outcome of political behavior rather than by design in the Constitution?
It's not really, it's basically a political culture that has been developed over the period of time, not only in Nepal, but we see in other parts of the world as well. This perhaps is the reason why a lot of people, a lot of the universities in the West are discussing can we have an alternative model of elections as well, because largely the elections are used to hijack the democracy as well. And if the democracy only becomes the electoral and it does not really look into the substantial part of it, then you don't really people really don't like it. The dividend of democracy then will not be enjoyed by the all. The very idea of democracy is to, it has to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And
right. we certainly will get there,
falling
Dr.
into
Bhatta,
that
right?
direction.
We'll certainly get there, because this discourse is certainly leading into the alternative spheres as to where the outlet of this desire would be. But let's focus on the instability that Nepal has come past since a prolonged period of transition, right? So is instability in Nepal, how do you as an analyst say, is it a malfunction or is it the system operating exactly as it is built?
It's somehow, I would say, earlier you said the political behavior. I would say it's basically the political culture that we have developed. If you look into the constitutional framework, it has a lot of mechanism that can look into the instability part as well. But somehow, when the very objective of politics is defined by the political leaders from their own perspectives, then it does not really provide the type of stability that we all wanted. So I think I would say it's inherently designed over the period of time. It has become a feature of Nepali democracy or politics over the last couple of decades, I would say. We've been, if we just start from 1990 onwards, it's been more than 35 years we have been practicing democracy. But if we look into the history of during these periods as well, we have seen many governments, and we have witnessed different types of instabilities, not only the governmental instabilities, but also instability, constitutional instability, legislative instability, executive instabilities. These all types of instabilities are there. So they can be managed, they can only be managed through the democratic political culture, democratic political behavior, which somehow is missing in our political class. The political class somehow is not really exercising that part. Also, the constitutional provisions are there. Through constitution as well, we can also manage the instabilities, but the fact of the matter is that somehow often the political class, political leaders, they try to define the laws also from their own perspectives. That somehow puts us in a very difficult situation. So I don't blame the system per se. It's basically the political behavior, political culture that we have developed over the period of time, which has been creating a lot of problems. The frustrations towards democracy. People think that it's not really delivering. So delivery can only come when we are really committed towards it. So that level of commitment is not really
delivery, Dr. Bhatta. Let's move to the center or the core or the soul of democracy, elections, right? You've already mentioned there has a time has come where people are looking for alternative electoral practices. Even the political class have been emphasizing on the need for a reform, right? So in this scenario, as we look back and look at the many number of elections that we've had in a very short period, How do you, as an observer or an analyst, see, do elections in Nepal, did they fail to generate political clarity? Or what was the problem?
I don't say like that. I would say like this. I think elections are quite important for democracy. They certainly produce legitimacy because without a legal legitimacy, you cannot really govern. In order to be in that place, the element of the governance, one has to have certain legitimacy. So elections are Nepal certainly providing a legal rational legitimacy, but they have failed to produce, I would say, the political legitimacy, primarily because elections are producing the government, but these government are not really being able to make the policies. The clarity, political clarity comes through the policies. So if you don't have a policy that aligns with the democratic values and principles, that creates a problem. So they do provide a clarity, legitimacy, but somehow these clarities are not really put into practice. So there is a clarity because political parties go to election, they have a manifesto, they have programs, they have everything. They talk everything under the sun. So everything is in their manifestos. But the problem arises once you are elected, you become a minister or you become a member of parliament or you occupy that space, the political space or the position, then you don't really, the political class, which is not, it's not happening here only, it's happening in other parts of the world as well. The accountability is the most important part. Government has to look into.
Right. So the issue is in delivery and being accountable. Right?
Accountability.
No matter what the system provides, if you fail to deliver, if you fail to be accountable, then that's where it certainly negotiates itself into paralysis, a sort of paralysis or frustration, right? Now this brings us to the engine room of Nepali politics, Dr. Bhatta. If you remember that last time we met, we were talking about Nepal's coalition culture, and this was before, well before the transition and the movement happened, right? But if you just pan through the world, you would certainly agree coalition has become a new norm globally, right?
Yes.
Not the exception, of course. Why has coalition government in Nepal produced immobilization rather than compromise?
I think this is one of the most important questions, and I would say this is the question of our time, and we should try to answer this question. Because as you said, coalition has become a norms now, not only in Nepal but in many other countries, even the Western developed democracies. If you look at the Western Europe, they have been practicing coalition culture for a long period of time, right after the Second World War until today. Germany is governing through the coalition parties only. Coalition government has been there, and in Netherlands, after the election, they only expect coalition government. They don't have any other alternatives. So it's happening everywhere. In South Africa, 1994. So majority of the countries today are practicing coalition culture. And I don't think there are very slim chances that a single party will come into the politics and will with the absolute majority, because in today's world the issues are different. We don't have a common. People have got their own interests, own issues, and the ideological political parties are becoming weaker because in the past there used to be ideological political parties, and under the ideology they used to garner the majority, but we don't have that situation today. It's a fragmented issues, fragmented situation. So I think then, but still there are some countries which have successfully governed through coalition culture, and some countries who have really done miserably failed. I would say we have been practicing coalition government, at least I would say from 2000, 2005, 6, and even before that. But somehow our coalition culture is not really based on certain principles, because we need to have principles for that. We need to have a coalition framework. Why do we want to come together? And that has not really been worked out in the past and clarified. Coalitions are largely built around the power sharing agreements only, and we don't see much of a discussion related to policies. So if the if the coalition governments are only formed on the basis of power sharing agreement, they don't really succeed. If they are also backed up by the policies and programs, and if they really wanted to take people's concern into consideration, they will definitely succeed. Another important part is our society, as I said earlier, although the ideology is dying out, but still, the political leaders, political parties, they come up with different types of ideology. So I think we should also try to minimize the differences and look for the common position where we can work together. So if we work in that direction, I don't see any problem with the coalition. But again, at the end of the time, the most important part in politics is why do we want to do politics is the most important part. Whether you wanted to do something for the people or you wanted to do something for yourself or only for your parties. If we really don't answer that question, I don't think we will go anywhere. If you ask anybody today, the youths or people of any ages, ask them a question, why do you want to come into the politics? I don't think they will have answers that satisfies us, because everybody would say, I want to serve this country. But there are people who have been serving in this country for a long period of time. But still people are not really happy about it with their service. So I think the part of the problem is the framework. We don't have the framework. Clear framework is not there. Also, the very intention of the coalitions. Why do you want to do that? Whether it is for just to stay in the power, or to do something for the country, or to do some, to improve the life of the people. That's the objective of the politics.
These stakeholders need to ponder
Yes.
on. We will certainly come to that later, Dr. Bhatta. Let's still keep our focus on the discontent of the people, right? Which is quite visible.
Yes.
We saw that.
Yeah.
We come past to one very important
Yes.
transition. And this time, this discontent has percolated down to the younger generation.
Yes.
Generation which should have been like engaged in their skill development,
true.
capacity development, they are now taking to the street. But the issue of concern, I believe you would agree with me, is the discontent remains or is visibly very fragmented even in that mass,
Yes,
right? So
that's very
what
true.
does this fragmentation tell us?
That's very true. The people are discontent, and there are reasons for that. And everybody has got their own reasons for being a discontent. I just wanted to give you an example. The first line of Leo Tolstoy's novel, Anna Karenina, they write, every happy family is happy. There is only one reason for that, because they are just happy. And every unhappy family is unhappy because there are more than one reason for that. So if you look at if we just try to, contextualize that line in the Nepali political context, so if we see certain people are happy because democracy is there for them and it's really working. In fact, it's thriving. And there are people who are unhappy and they have more than one reason. There are the youths coming from the urban center have different challenges, and youths coming from the rural areas have different challenges. There are highly educated people, there are less educated people. So different types of peoples are there in the protests as well. And these protests have happened without a leader, because they were not led by anyone. So they were, I would say, some sort of, these people came out in the street to just vent out their frustrations. So they all have got their own issues which they wanted to express through the street protest. This has not been, there has not been a unified movement for the reason that these issues are also scattered, fragmented. There perhaps could have been a unified, what we call a social movement or a movement, if they were guided by the certain agendas, or they have common issues, we don't really see that common issues. But still, despite all these fragmentations, we can see one common factors. Whether you come from outside of Kathmandu, or you come from a city, or you are educated, uneducated, whether you want to go outside for a work, you are going to be aspirant migrant workers, whatever background you have got, or whatever futures you wanted to pursue. The one common thing is that the governance is a problem. The governance is not really happening the way it should work in this country. That's the common voice we can see in each and every protest. And then the second point that we can see, or we can observe, is the which is also somehow linked with the governance itself, the issue of service delivery. And third one is everybody is talking about, people wanted to go out, we cannot stop them, because it's a free world, and individuals have the choice whether they wanted to stay in this country, work here, or whether they wanted to go outside. But the very objective of the state is to provide bare minimum opportunities within the countries. I think we have terribly failed there. That's why these movements are happening from their own ways. They have their own understandings. Apart from that, Nepali society also has been divided along those in a different line. But one of the most important line is there are people. I do not really wanted to be too critical about the political parties or the political practices, but that's the reality here. I just wanted to explain. There are people who are aligned with the political parties. There are people who already have got something to their disposals, but there are youths, who don't see the future of their own in this country, but they need to be protected. So their voice, the voices might be fragmented. They might have different issues, but it's the duty of the state or the people who are in the politics or who are going to be at the helm of power. They need to look into their issues. Otherwise, this will create problems. Today we are in a situation of poly-crisis. If the poly-crisis prolongs, we will enter into a next phase, which is called perma-crisis, permanent crisis. So it's quite an important. If the situation moves into that direction, paralysis, the poly-crisis becomes perma-crisis. That will really be bad, not only for the democracy, but for a whole society, because people will lose hope. Confidence is the most important part.
Let me interrupt you right there, Dr. Bhatta, because this is what Nepal is headed for. I think this is majority of public aspiration, that this prime or fundamental concern would be addressed by the political players itself. Yes. And again, let me get back to you to the discontent, right? We see there is discontent. It's fragmented, of course, for the very reasons that you've shared. But this is not just about discontent and not only about anger. It's also about the absence of political alternatives, right? Yes. This has been long sought, but from here, how do you foresee the future?
This is, I think you've linked it very nicely, because we're entering into the next phase of our discussions, because this discontent has happened primarily because the government of the day has failed to deliver, or they're not happy with the way politics has been functioning, or the system per se is working. Right? And people, it's not only in Nepal, the discussion on the alternative politics is happening in almost everywhere, and people are looking for a change. That's the human nature. And the idea of alternative politics has also been floated in Nepal. It's been almost 6 years, people are talking about the alternative politics. But the way alternative politics is coming is not really, I don't want to blame them because they're not really into the government yet, but just looking by their, the agendas or the way they are coming up is also not really encouraging. I would say the alternative politics in Nepal is still the leftover or the residue of the past politics, I would say, because you see the same people there as well. You don't see much, agendas. They also don't have agendas. The clarity, the political clarity is also missing there. The alternative politics is basically building around the unsuccess or the failure of the older political class, and it's operating on the binaries. Basically, we are good people and they are bad people. So it's some sort of binaries which is creating, which is developing some sort of what we call populism as well. I would say the alternative politics is also harping on these issues. If they really come up with certain agendas, let's suppose, how do they want to change the politics? We don't really talk about economics, which is the most important part in politics. How do they want to change economic future of the country? The bulging youth population that come into this country, like around 7 lakhs plus people, youths every year. How much job are we going to create for them is quite important. I think that should be the discussion, rather than blaming each other. That blaming game is going on for a long period of time. Old class is blaming the new class for creating instability, for destroying the system, whereas the new class is saying that these people have destroyed us, they have finished everything. So I don't think this is not really going to lead us anywhere. The discussion would be centered around what are the issues that we should work together, and what are the factors that is leading discontent and state protest repeatedly in this country. Why there has been a conflict or the movement in every 10 years? I think we should try to answer this question. Every 10 years from 1950 onwards, we see one type or the other type of change happening here. But we've never tried to answer that question, because there are certain reasons behind that, why that happens. Because every 10 to 15 years, we have a new generations coming in politics, right? And we have a the political practices, political behavior are the same, and we're not really creating opportunities for these people. And we also don't try to understand their sentiment, feeling. Definitely they will come up with their own imagination, they will have their own worldviews. So if we don't try to look into their concerns, they will have to rebel. There is no alternative.
The point you want to make is any political force, the traditional or the newer ones, whoever has the central agenda as economy would be or is the alternative force that the Nepali people is seeking at the moment.
I think that should be the priority for all the political parties, because we have a constitution. We are a democratic state. Even the modern democracy was not there. The countries like us have been practicing democracy for ages, right? We don't have to say that we just have practiced democracy. It's been it's a very short history. I don't buy that argument, because the very the very spirit of this society is democratic society. Right? It's only that we need to, but the situation has changed over the period of time. Political economy is changing. We really need to adjust the society, the aspirations of the people with the changes that are happening within the country and that are happening outside the country as well, because we cannot remain aloof from the outside world. So that should be the, I think, priority. And the stability, we've been talking about stability for a long period of time. Stability alone provides, it does not guarantee, there will be a prosperity. To be a prosperous country, to have a citizen who can have some hope in the country, I think we need to work in that direction, and economy is the most important part. But sadly enough, I would say, we've not really been able to do the three things. First, the political management. It's been going on for a long period of time. There are countries which have come into the world limelight, I would say. They are younger countries, I would rather say. They've not really, they have moved ahead. We've not really been able to manage the politics. The second one issue is the survival function of the state, I would say. Survival means survival of its people and survival of the sustainability of the system and the state. I think we also need to work in that direction.
Right. So at this point of time, when Nepal is looking forward with a lot of hope, and maybe a little grim on side, some are calling this situation, the situation we are living at the moment, as chaos. Some say it's a new dawn, right? From an expert's lens, what would you call this situation? Is Nepal experiencing democratic fatigue or democratic maturity?
I think it's everything. Again, everything would depend. I think that you get the two interesting words in your question: the chaos and dawn. It depends how you look into the things. It's entirely depends on the way people try to interpret it. But I would say we have to be pessimistic about the future. If we don't have pessimism, I don't think we have to be optimistic. Sorry, not pessimistic. We have to be optimistic about the future of the politics. The change, the chaos can be managed, and we can come out of this crisis, provided that the political class, whether they come from a new parties or new groups or the old ones, they should come together. And they can, if they work together for the country, for the people, I think there is a lot of hope. There is a lot of optimism, not always pessimism. And change, change is the nature of the society, and change is that's the only thing which is permanent. Change is the only permanent. So I don't see much of a problem, provided that political parties and all they work together and they work for this country, and they manage the, we're not fighting with outsiders. The struggle is within the country and within our own people, the political parties, whichever background you come from. So that part has to be managed. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Right. So wherever we are, at whatever point, optimism is very, very pivotal.
That's
right?
most important.
And again, this brings us to a very, very pivotal concern, because legitimacy doesn't, disappear very quietly.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about the viewers outside Nepal, Dr. Bhatta. Why should they care about this political adrift here in Nepal?
I think it's quite important for Nepal as well as for them to look into what is happening here in this country. At least I would say for three reasons. First, is Nepal's geographic locations, which is quite important, and the way geopolitics is developing, not only in this part of the world, but in other regions as well. The second is the regional stability, I would say. That is also quite important. If anything happens bad in this country, if Nepal becomes too unstable and it goes for a long period of time, that will create instability in the region as well. Third, there is something called, the global goods, I would say. Democracy is a global good. It's something that, universal values. And Nepal is just coming out of, it's a post-conflict society. We went through 10 years of insurgency, and during this period of time and during the constitution writing process or the peace process, international community has provided a lot of support to Nepal as well. So if Nepal moves back, if Nepal slides back, or if it reverts to the conflict or problems, political instability, it will not be good for the international society as well. And it has to be, if the instability keeps on, it becomes the normal practice in this country, instability. I think that will also create a problem for a broader, in a broader geopolitical context. So it's quite an important. Also, in today's globalized world, Nepal's political problem is not only Nepal's problem. That becomes a global problem as well. Everybody is quite concerned about it. Just the classic example I just wanted to give you is the, what happened in recent, in West Asian countries, which conflict has been there for a long period of time, or what has happened in Venezuela or any other parts of the country. We also become concerned about it. So concern is some sort. It's not always a negative thing, I would say. Concerns also is, they also wanted some sort of, it creates a solidarity, I would put it like this, some sort of solidarity, because we've been a part of an international community for a long period of time, and we've been supported by the international community during the peace process, as I said earlier. So it is quite important, not only for Nepal but also for the regional stability and for the international community as well. So any problem, it's a trickle-down effect, will affect not only have consequences for the region and for the people inside, but it can also be the problem for outsiders.
How much of this instability diminish Nepal's strategic relevance? Like, does it simply change, does it change how we interact or engage with our neighbors?
I think it's quite an important question, and I think we really need to look into it very, very seriously, because last year or the year before that, the French newspaper Le Monde wrote about Nepal, and the headline was Nepal is a world champion of political instability or something like that. That was what Le Monde reported. If the reporting about Nepal in the international press, or the international community always sees or knows Nepal from instability perspectives, I don't think that will really be good for us. And in today's world, basically in today's context, I would say, when geopolitics is at its height, at multiple levels, if we become politically unstable, I don't think we will really be able to address the challenges that geopolitics is coming up in the region and beyond that. Also, our interactions at the international level, for a state like Nepal, engagement at the international level is quite important, and that will also be impacted. So I think the prolonged instability will create, will definitely weaken us, will not really help us to negotiate with other powers, other countries as well. So I think that's quite an important part, and we have to we should be able to address these questions. Why instability all the times? And so which is because this is already impacting the internal political dynamics, and it is also going to have an impact for the broader geopolitical landscape as well. So we need to find out where the problems lies.
So what do you think, how is the international community reading Nepal at the moment?
I think the Gen Z movement was a turning point in Nepal's, I think, in a recent political history. Lenin said there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. And many things happen. If you look at during the 24 hours time, many things happened in this country, and I don't whether people may not agree on it, but the institutions were become basically very weak as well. since then, the way international community looks into Nepal is not that really encouraging for us. If you look at the problems that happened in the streets and the state takeover, it would be too harsh, but it's a kind of a state takeover from the street, which is not really a positive sign. If it becomes a trend or norms in the future, I think that will be really, really problematic for us, for a democratic stability or any type of stability that we aspired for. Also, what we need, we've been talking about politics all the times, and in order to be a stable politics, we need a stable economy as well, and for that we need international support, investment, international investment. And if we become unstable, and if the situation continues like this, the level of support or the investment that Nepal is to receive from outside will definitely decrease as well. It will also have consequences for the I think during that time, I don't know how the situation is now, but a lot of countries were quite reluctant to provide the travel permissions to Nepal as well. I think it was very concerning. They became quite concerned. So today, all of, I think, international community put together, they definitely wanted to have a stable Nepal. They must have been reading the development in Nepal very closely. If you look at the recent development, the way Nepal has been put into the categories of those 73 countries, that the 75 countries, right. That's
alarming.
That's already alarming. That's already indicating something. So it's instability can turn into a conflict, and conflict into a civil war. I'm sorry to say all these things, but it's a very difficult situation. So we have to be quite careful about all these things. We have to understand the nitty-gritty of the situation, I would say, why we are, the political things and all these.
Right. These very concerns, and then there are speculations, there are rumors making rounds.
Of course, yes.
There are misinformation, disinformation,
yes.
right? So amidst all this, let us move towards closing this conversation with you, Dr. Bhatta. Let me end here with, amidst all this, with a very hard question. 10 years from now, will Nepal's democracy look stronger or similar or familiar?
I hope we have a stronger democracy. That's a hope, and we can hope for that. But I can just split into two parts. The next 5 years, I think we're not really going to be stable, as stable as we want. Because of the recent political development as well. If you look at the split of the political parties, and there is some sort of not really a conflict, but disagreement between and among different types of political forces as well. That will take a time to settle down. So I would give next 5 years for that. And if we work carefully, next for another 5 years might provide a political stability, and we have a new generations coming up. They are well read, they are well exposed as well to the international development. They know what's happening in the world. So we basically have to rely on them. The future lies with them. So how do we want to develop them? Depends, will decide the fate of this country as well. The politics is there, but the future generations, the youngsters, those who are coming into politics, in society, in economics, how do we want to shape their future, will shape the future of this country as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Bhatta, for coming over, sharing your insights, and moreover, for helping us read our democratic journey.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you here.
Same here.
Right. This was a conversation about democracy, not as an event, but as a system under stress. Nepal's choices in this moment will echo beyond its borders, as our expert just shared with us. Because democracies everywhere are asking the same question at the moment. Not whether people vote, but whether systems still decide. That's it from Geopod this week. Good night.
Kathmandu has long been known as a place where natural beauty, history, culture, and spirituality come together in remarkable harmony. Rising above the western side of the valley stands Swayambhunath, one of Nepal's most revered and ancient sites. Many simply call it Swayambhu. For countless generations, it has been a sanctuary of spiritual devotion, a place where the first light of morning touches the prayer flags and where monks and devotees begin their day in meditation and worship. Swayambhu is cherished by Buddhists from all over the world, yet it holds equal significance for many Hindus. This shared reverence creates a rare sense of unity within its sacred grounds. The origins of Swayambhunath stretch back at least 2.5 millennia. Inscriptions and centuries-old statues found throughout the site testify to its long-standing presence and its profound cultural importance. The stupa itself is one of Nepal's traditional religious landmarks, crowned by the serene eyes of the Buddha that gaze out across all four directions. These eyes are regarded as a message of compassion, awareness, and peace for all beings. For Buddhists, the stupa and its symbols become a guide toward understanding the teachings of the Buddha. For Hindu visitors, the temples and images of deities within the complex hold deep spiritual meaning of their own. In 1989, Swayambhunath was formally recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site, an honor that elevated Nepal's cultural identity on the global stage and helped protect this extraordinary place for future generations. The surroundings of Swayambhu offer many places of interest. Pilgrims and travelers often find themselves captivated by the calm atmosphere and the panoramic views over the Kathmandu Valley. The architecture of the complex reflects a graceful blend of Nepali and Tibetan influences. The stupa follows ancient Nepali design traditions, while the monasteries and retreat houses that surround it reflect elements of Tibetan craftsmanship. These two styles together give Swayambhunath a distinctive character found nowhere else. Preserving Swayambhu is not only a religious responsibility, it is an effort guided equally by historical and cultural commitment. The temples, statues, and inscriptions within the complex carry stories that span centuries. The main stupa, crowned by the four compassionate eyes, remains the heart of the site. Monks gather each day to meditate and study. Within these halls, elaborate paintings and sacred sculptures portray episodes from the life of the Buddha and remind visitors of the spiritual traditions that continue to flourish here. The entrance to Swayambhunath features a gate designed to convey purity and reverence. Sculptures and painted figures on the gate reveal the guiding ideals of Buddhist philosophy. Scattered around the grounds are ancient inscriptions that preserve the history of the land. Statues of various Buddhas stand alongside images of Parvati and Shiva, creating a space where cultural diversity and shared devotion coexist with harmony. Swayambhunath is one of Nepal's most visited destinations. Its landscapes, spiritual gravity, and cultural richness draw people from around the world. Each year, millions of visitors, both local and international, climb the steps leading toward the stupa. Their presence contributes greatly to Nepal's tourism economy and to the livelihoods of those who live and work nearby. Quake of 2015 brought significant destruction to Swayambhunath. Several structures collapsed and many priceless sculptures were damaged. The impact on the site's cultural heritage was deeply felt throughout the country. Yet, the response to this tragedy revealed the strength of the community. Local residents, government agencies, cultural experts, monks, and international organizations came together to restore the complex. The rebuilding process became more than a physical reconstruction. It became a spiritual effort guided by devotion and the hope of preserving peace and compassion for future generations. Today, visitors find improved pathways, restored shrines, and safe spaces from which to explore the site. Nearby, Guest houses and small hotels offer comfortable places to stay for those who wish to spend more time experiencing the surroundings. For many, Swayambhu is not only a religious landmark but a symbol of introspection and inner calm. The peaceful environment encourages reflection. The sacred presence of the stupa gives visitors a sense of quiet strength. The eyes of the Buddha seem to guide those who come seeking balance, clarity, or a moment of stillness. As the sun rises, its light glimmers on the golden pinnacle of the stupa. And as the night falls, the view of Kathmandu from this hilltop feels almost otherworldly, as though the city below is touched by a gentle glow. Swayambhunath continues to stand as a reminder of the spiritual harmony that has shaped Nepal for centuries. It invites every visitor to pause, to breathe, and to discover a deeper part of themselves.
Only after 6 decades of the institutional development of the now popular game of cricket did Nepal get the opportunity to play in the World Cup. Although cricket was introduced in Nepal during the Rana regime, the sport was confined to a limited number of people, namely the elite. It all started with equipment brought by students returning from their studies in Britain and India. Although Cricket Association of Nepal (CAN) was established in 1947, cricket remained centered among a few affluent individuals and in limited tournaments for a long time. Starting with the Bishnu Trophy in 1948, tournaments were limited to competitions like the Madan Memorial Sealed, Jugal Kishore Trophy, Rammani Trophy, and later the Jai Trophy. Even as the sport expanded outside Kathmandu Valley, it took decades for cricket to develop at the grassroots level. After the International Cricket Council (ICC) granted Nepal affiliate membership in 1988, Nepali cricket embarked on its international journey. The rule of mandatory participation in tournaments by the ICC and the Asian Cricket Council (ACC) opened doors to international competition for Nepal. After participating in the Under-19 Asian tournament in Hong Kong in 1996, Nepal has not looked back. Winning titles at the Asian and global levels, Nepali cricket team continues its journey towards the pinnacle of world cricket.
Goes down the ground because he was given that line outside off stump, so the first boundary of the contest, a handsome one.
Initially confined to Tunikhel in Kathmandu, many international tournaments were hosted in Nepal after an international standard ground was built in Kirtipur. Nepal has also shown its proactiveness in differently abled cricket tournaments like the T20 World Cup for the blind in 2012 and the Asian Cricket Tournament for the deaf. Nepali women's national cricket team has also achieved remarkable success in a short period of time. The latest addition in Nepali cricket is the floodlit Tribhuvan University Cricket Stadium and the Nepal Premier League that has provided opportunity for Nepali players to rub shoulders with world-class players.
Welcome to another episode of the Hinterlands once again. Tonight we travel from the northern highlands to the Tarai plains of the country, exploring the delicate balance between ancient tradition and modern progress. We begin in the high hills of Nepal's Rasua, where archery or arrow festival is more than just a sport. It is a sacred winter gatherings for Himalayan indigenous communities. During different occasions, these highlands transform into a vibrant stage of cultural identity and celebration. Archery festival, symbolizing bravery and skill, is a significant cultural and sporting activity in the Himalayan country, Nepal, often integrated into local festivals and tourism promoting events. Traditional archery festivals are primarily held in the Himalayan and high hilly regions, including Rasua, Manang, Mustang, and Dolpa. It is an integral part of the cultural heritage of several Himalayan indigenous communities, including the Tamang, Thakali, and Gurung. In the northern region of Rasua, people proudly uphold their long-standing archery traditions, especially during the 15-day-long Gyalpo Lochar celebration and other major social gatherings. These events usually take place during the winter season, when agricultural work slows down and communities have time to gather and celebrate. Archery performances held during Gyalpo Lochar, the King's New Year, carry deep spiritual and cultural significance. On this special occasion, both the young people and elders come together with joy and enthusiasm to preserve and celebrate their heritage. Dressed in a traditional attire, community members participate in vibrant singing and dancing, creating a festive and lively atmosphere. One of the highlights of the celebration is the yearly archery competition, which features participants from villages across the region and adds excitement to the festivities. Before making their shots, competitors receive blessings that symbolize good fortune and important hallmark of the tradition. Archers aimed at designated targets, which may represent the symbolic destruction of evil or simply demonstrate skill and precision. The most accurate archer earns great respect within the community. Prizes are awarded to those whose arrows strike the target and travel the greatest distance using traditional bows and arrows. These festivals help preserve ancient skills, honor community heritage, and mark important times of the year. From the high ridges, we move to the hills of Sangza, where locals are working to preserve traditional village names, shaping a renewed sense of identity. The community is now being recognized as a model of progressive preservation. Subiksha Rajak takes a closer look here.
With federalism bringing development projects and administrative restructuring, the trend of renaming villages and settlements has grown across Nepal. In many places, contemporary names have overshadowed traditional ones known for generations. However, Ponchamul Majubhanjang village in Adikula Rural Municipality 1, Syangja has taken a different path. Locals have preserved their traditional village names while using them to establish a new identity. Community members say naming development projects after local settlements has made social activities and administrative work easier, while also strengthening local recognition. Clear identification of settlements helps in project selection and makes social and administrative tasks more effective, said local resident Khemnanda Sharma.
हाम्रो यो पुरानो नामले चिनिने जुन टोलहरू थिए त्यो टोलको नामाकरण पनि नमेटिने र अनि त्यसपछि विकासको क्रमलाई पनि हामीले चाहिँ यो टोल छुट्याएर राख्दाखेरि विकास गर्नको लागि पनि हेरियो टोलका लागि यति काम गर्न सहज होस् भन्ने हिसाबले चाहिँ सहज हुन्छ भन्ने लाग्छ मलाई.
Ponchamul is also known as the first homestay village in Nepal, attracting both domestic and international tourists. Locals believe that preserving traditional names alongside homestay tourism helps visitors understand the village's cultural identity while protecting its originality. Adikhola Rural Municipality representative Vishwanath Paudel noted that while renaming trends elsewhere risk erasing heritage, Ponchamul's initiative to safeguard traditional names can serve as a model.
मान्छेले आफ्नो स्वभाव शैली मा परिवर्तन गर्ने कुरा, आफ्ना रीतिरिवाज र संस्कृतिहरूलाई संरक्षण गर्ने कुरा, आदर गर्ने कुराहरू यो सबैभन्दा महत्त्वपूर्ण विकास रहेको छ.
If replicated, it could ensure that development goes hand in hand with cultural preservation.
While we celebrate heritage in the hills, we confront a complex reality in the plains. Child marriage in the Tarai remains a serious social challenge still, with rates still above the national average. Addressing this pressing issue in Rohtahat, a large-scale dialogue recently brought together students, parents and activists united in their call for change. A report. While national rates of child marriage in Nepal are gradually declining, the prevalence in the Tarai lowlands remains significantly higher than the national average. In the 20 districts of the Tarai, including Rohtahat, 42.2% of girls are married before the legal age. To address this pressing issue, a mass gathering of young students against child marriage was recently held in Gajura municipality in Rohtahat district. Teachers, parents, local government representatives, and members of various social organizations also came together to speak out against this harmful and illegal practice. The theme of the program was Choose a Successful Career, Not Dowry. The event aimed to raise awareness about child marriage, promote higher education, and encourage young girls to prioritize their careers over traditional practices, fostering a shift toward education, empowerment, and self-reliance. The program included constructive dialogues, learning sessions and reflections on the ongoing prevalence of child marriage across many communities in Nepal. Through group discussions, drama performances, and presentations, young girls powerfully highlighted the negative impacts of child marriage on education, their health, and future opportunities. They showed their strong determination, choosing education and empowerment over following the harmful social culture.
बाल विवाह गर्नु हुँदैन किनकि सानै उमेरमा बिहे गरे भने बच्चा जन्मिदा बच्चाको मानसिक समस्या पनि कमजोर आउन सक्छ. बाल विवाह गर्नु हुँदैन र आफू पनि बाल विवाह नगर्ने र अरूलाई पनि बाल विवाह गर्नु हुँदैन.
Participants not only discussed the challenges but also expressed hope for change, emphasizing that child marriage remains a serious concern. Activists highlighted child marriage is a severe human rights violation that disproportionately affects girls, impacting approximately 1 in 5 girls worldwide. in order to create a lasting positive change and advancing the elimination of child marriage in Nepali society.
तराई क्षेत्रमा रौतटमा खासै गरेर डाटा अनुसार नै 49% चाहिँ बाल विवाह हुने डाटामै देखाएको छ। अझै साँच्चै नै रियालिटीमा वास्तविकतामा हो भने त्योभन्दा धेरै बढी चाहिँ बाल विवाह हुन्छ। अनि फेरि दाइजो पनि एकदमै धेरै छोरीहरूले पढ्न नपाउने, त्यही भएर एकदम बाल विवाहको अन्त्य नै उच्च शिक्षाको आधार, दाइजो होइन सफल पेशा नै रोज्ने विचार भन्ने नाराका साथ हामीले यो एउटा अभियान चलाएको।
This kind of dialogue is pivotal, experts highlighted during the mass gathering and constructive dialogue in Rautahar district. Nepal successfully completed its House of Representatives elections on March 5th. After 40 days of service, thousands of temporary security personnel were bid farewell. But in eastern Dhankuta, that farewell marks the beginning of new opportunities as provincial and local governments launch specialized training programs to help transition these personnel into long-term employment across multiple sectors. Temporary security personnel hired for the House of Representatives elections on March 5th have completed their 40-day service. They were formally bid farewell through various functions across the country. However, in eastern Nepal's Dhankuta, a different scene unfolded as the local government prepared to provide specialized training in various categories to link them to employment and entrepreneurial opportunities. Skill-based training programs tailored to participants' interest and conducted in collaboration with different agencies have been initiated. The training aims to guide former election security personnel toward self-employment and income-generating opportunities. Out of 149,090 security personnel deployed nationwide, 1,085 served in Dhankuta. Many were uncertain about their next steps after completing the 40-day assignment and feared returning to unemployment and daily livelihood struggles. The orientation programs held during the farewell, however, have given them hope and confidence, showing that they can pursue opportunities by enrolling in these specialized trainings under local government. Experts and officials from several institutions under provincial and local government, including the CTVT Agriculture Knowledge Center, National Commercial Agriculture Research Center, Division Forest Office, and the Cottage and Small Industries Office, shared information about opportunities in their respective sectors. Chief District Officer of Dhankuta, Binod Kumar Khatka, stated that the program was organized with the objective of supporting better future for those who contributed to the election process. In coordination with banks and financial institutions, participants were also informed about the concessional loans for their startups. The program is expected to encourage them to engage in agriculture, livestock farming, forest-based production, and small industries. While election security personnel in many areas simply return home after the election period ends, Dhankuta has provided them the opportunity to receive training and develop skills. This initiative aims to transform short-term employment into long-term entrepreneurship and sustainable livelihoods. Finally, we head to Tulsipur in Dang, where classrooms are being redefined for visually impaired students. Digital technology is breaking barriers as smart boards enter the classroom or curriculum. By converting lessons into a high-quality audio, these tools are opening new doors for higher-grade learners, beginning inclusive education closer to reality. Bijeta Bhandari reports.
The education of visually impaired students at Guru Jajur Higher Secondary School in Rakshachor Tulsipur in Dang of Midwestern Nepal has become significantly easier recently due to digital technology. Students have felt a sense of relief after the school began conducting classes from grade 9 to 12 using smart boards. There are approximately 48 visually impaired students studying from grade 1 to 12 at this school. Although they traditionally rely on Braille textbooks, the introduction of digital teaching methods for higher grades has streamlined the learning process. Sujan Chaudhary, a grade 11 student, says it has become much easier to learn and understand the subject matter through audio.
सहज त भइराछ कस्तो भने कथाहरू हुन्छ कविताहरू हुन्छ त्यस्तो बेला म्यामहरुले साथीहरुले बजाइदिएपछि त्यहाँ हामीले यहाँबाट सुन्ने हो स्क्रिन रिडर भएको भए झन् अझ हामीलाई सजिलो हुन्थ्यो.
Teachers emphasize that because educational materials, equipment, and assistive technology for visually impaired students are extremely expensive, the government must pay special attention to this sector. Teacher Ram Bahadur Khadka notes that while the shortage of textbooks is not as severe as in previous years, there is still an insufficient supply of necessary materials.
किन्न चाहिँ गाह्रो हुन्छ त्यही भएर सरकारले अब उपलब्ध गराइदियो भने राम्रो हुन्छ. अहिले सरकारले अलि किताब त उपलब्ध गराइन्छ तर पनि प्रशस्त अरूले भने जति हुँदैन.
The school has been educating visually impaired students for a long time, addressing various challenges along the way, according to Principal Vishnu Kumari Kesi. She mentions that the school currently employs 3 visually impaired teachers and 1 resource teacher, while also providing hostel facilities and bus services.
हामी लङ टाइमदेखि या दृष्टिविहीन सञ्चालन भइरहेको हुँदा उनीहरूको प्रब्लम बिस्तारै सल्भ गर्दै आएका छौँ. पहिला चाहिँ यही नजिक होस्टेल थियो, अलि कन्जस्टेड थियो. अहिले चाहिँ हाम्रो राणा गाउँमा रहेको आफ्नै स्कुलको जग्गाको त्यहाँ चाहिँ होस्टेल छ. उनलाई आउन जान गाह्रो परेको थियो. त्यही भएर हामीले त्यो बसको सुविधा त्यहाँ पनि पठाइदिएका छौँ.
While Braille remains the primary foundation for the education of the visually impaired students, digital learning has added a new ray of hope to more than 145,000 people living with visual impairment in Nepal. While the Braille system was introduced in Nepal's academic field more than 60 years ago, its accessibility and quality assistive technology delivery needs much more work. The use of technology in teaching visually impaired students in Dang might serve as an example to the rest in educating students with visual impairments.
Beyond the cities and the headlines, real lives continue to unfold. Stories shaped by struggle, strengthened by resilience, and carried forward by hope. This is the Hinterlands, and we will be back next week with more stories from the heart of Nepal. Do follow us on our website www.nepaltelevision.com, our social media handles, and YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye for now.
सिमरौनगढ दरबार खुल्ला इतिहास, कला र संस्कृतिको एउटा संग्रहालय। इतिहास, सभ्यता र कलाको रहस्य बोकेको सहर सिमरौनगढ। एउटा छुट्टै इतिहास रच्न सफल सहर सिमरौनगढ। ऐतिहासिक, सांस्कृतिक र पुरातात्विक महत्व बोकेको सिमरौनगढ दरबार मध्य प्रदेशको बारा जिल्लामा अवस्थित सिमरौनगढ नगरपालिकामा पर्दछ। बारा जिल्लाको सदरमुकाम कलैयाबाट 20 किलोमिटर दक्षिण पूर्वमा रहेको सिमरौनगढ नगरपालिकाको कार्यालयबाट करिब 500 मिटर दक्षिण पश्चिम गएपछि सिमरौनगढ दरबार पुग्न सकिन्छ। सिमरौनगढको सम्बन्ध सिमलको वंशसँग रहेको तथ्य नेपालमा प्राप्त सबभन्दा पुरानो वंशावली गोपालर वंशावलीले प्रस्ट्याएको छ। सो वंशावलीमा यस स्थललाई सिमरावनगढ भनी उल्लेख छ, जसको अर्थ हुन्छ सिमलको वनमा रहेको किल्ला। सिमलको वन रहेको यो क्षेत्र सिमरावनगढबाट अपभ्रंश हुँदै सिमरौनगढ भएको मान्यता छ।
यो सिमरौनगढ नाउँ भने यहाँ पहिले सिम्बलको खाली रुख यहाँ सिम्बलको थियो। यो सिम्बलको वन भन्नु पर्यो नि, यहाँ सिम्बलको वनै वन थियो पहिले। यसको माझमा बीचमा नि यो गढ थियो, यो किला थियो यो गढ। त्यस कारणले सिम्बलगढ भनेर अपभ्रंश भई आएर सिमरौनगढ भन्यो। यसको सिमरौनगढको अपभ्रंश, सिम्बलगढको अपभ्रंश हो यो सिमरौनगढ।
कुनै समय एक सुरक्षित र सम्पन्न राजधानी रहेको सिमरौनगढ दरबारलाई बलिया अग्ला चक्रव्यूह आकारका पर्खालले घेरिएको थियो। तत्कालीन राजा वीरेन्द्रबाट यस क्षेत्रको अवलोकन पश्चात पुरातत्व विभाग र इटालियन सरकारको तत्वावधानमा सिमरौनगढको उत्खनन गरियो। उत्खननका क्रममा कर्णाटकालका पुरातात्विक, धार्मिक, सांस्कृतिक अवशेषहरू फेला पर्यो। सिमरौनगढका पुराना अवशेषहरू आज पनि यत्रतत्र पाइन्छ। यहाँ डढेको चामल, माटोका भाँडा बर्तन, गरगहनाहरू पाइन्छ।
यहाँको धार्मिक इतिहास र पुरातत्व विभागको त सबै संरचना छँदैछ। यो मन्दिर छ, पुरानो मूर्ति छ, डएको चावल पाइन्छ, कङ्गन कालीको स्थान छ, तलेजु भवानीको अहिले शिलाको बाकस राखेको छ, त्यो पनि छँदैछ। चारैतिर सुन बिखरिएको पनि पाइन्छ। यो सबै पाइँदाखेरि त पुरातत्व भएन।
यस क्षेत्रको कचरवा गाउँमा माकराकृतिको टुटी भएको धारो, हरिपुर गाविसमा रहेको ढुङ्गाको बाकस निकै रहस्यमय छ। जति खन्दै जाँदा झन भित्र भासिनु यस बाकसको विशेषता हो। अत्यन्त कलात्मक रहेको यो बाकसको बाहिरी भाग मात्रै देखिन्छ, बाँकी भाग जमिनमा गाडिएको छ। स्थानीयले यसलाई बाकस, तिजोरी, सन्दुक भने पनि वास्तवमा यो के हो अहिलेसम्म पत्ता लाग्न सकेको छैन।
वो जमाना के शिवाजी महाराज के दरबार के तिजरी है, पत्थर हो, रात लुटन हो गए, पत्थर हो गए, ताला कुली सब बंद बा, में ताला बा, कुली बा, सब सहित बा।
बाकसको नजिकै खम्बा आकारको कालो ढुङ्गा छ। खम्बा सामान्य देखिए पनि 10-15 जना मिलेर पनि यसलाई टसमस समेत गर्न सक्दैनन्। ढुङ्गाको खम्बा झन रहस्यमय छ। स्थानीयका अनुसार यस खम्बालाई बाहिर निकाल्न खोज्दा यो झन जमिनमा भासिने गर्दछ। यो क्षेत्रमा बाढी आए पनि यो खम्बा डुब्दैन। यस प्रकार सिमरनगढ क्षेत्र पुरातात्विक दृष्टिकोणले समेत महत्त्वपूर्ण छ। सिमरनगढको सांस्कृतिक सम्पदाको दोस्रो स्थानमा यहाँका मन्दिरहरूलाई लिन सकिन्छ। सिमरनगढको बीच भागमा स्थापना गरिएको कंकाली मन्दिर ईंटद्वारा निर्माण गरिएको शिखर शैलीमा छ। मन्दिर चारैतिर चतुष्कोणाकारको भवनको बीचमा शिखर उठेर माथिसम्म चुलिएको छ। मन्दिरको चारैतिर खुल्ला गुम्बजाकारको प्रवेशद्वार निर्माण गरिएको छ। मन्दिरमा रहेका कंकालीको मूर्ति कालो प्रस्तरमा कुँदिएको छ। मूर्तिको गोलाकार अनुहार, ठूला आँखा, पुष्ट छातीले त्यस बेलाको विशेषतालाई दर्शाउँछ। देवीको गालामा हार, कानमा गोलाकार कुण्डल, कम्मरमा हार जडेको च्याप्टो पेटी छ। शान्त सौम्य मुद्रामा रहेको यो मूर्तिले कलामा छुट्टै स्थान ओगटेको छ।
यो सिमरनगढ भनेको कंकाली स्थान जो कि दुनियाँको सबभन्दा शक्तिपीठ राम्रो जहाँ बलि नै चढ्दैन। यो श्री कंकालीमा सबै शक्तिपीठमा बलि चढ्छ तर कंकालीमा स्थानमा बलि चढ्दैन। त्यस्तो विशाल मन्दिर अनि यस्तो विशाल मन्दिर राम जानकीको मन्दिर यहाँ दुईटा छ। अनि यसको अलावा पनि यहाँ नानदेवले यानि कि 1097 ईस्वीमा सिमरनगढलाई राजधानी बनाएको यो नानदेव हो। नानदेवको 7औं पुस्ता जगह त्यसमा हरसिंहदेव, गङदेव, रामदेव सबै 7औं पुस्ता हो। अन्तिम पुस्ता चाहिँ हरसिंहदेव हो। हरसिंहदेवको पालामा ग्यासुद्दिन तुगलकले यहाँ आक्रमण गरेर सबै ध्वस्त पारिदिएको थियो। यस्तो यस्तो पूर्वाधारहरू छ। तैपनि हाम्रो सिमरनगढमा कसैको नजर छैन। यहाँ त म भन्छु कि यसलाई विश्व सम्पदा सूचीमा राख्यो भने सबभन्दा राम्रो हुन्छ। यहाँको नेताहरूले यसै माध्यममा भन्छु कि सिमरनगढलाई विश्व सम्पदा सूचीमा राख्नु जरुरी छ।
यहाँ रामनवमीको दिन ठूलो मेला लाग्ने गर्दछ। सामान्य रूपमा भक्तजनहरू आउने क्रम दिनहुँ नै रहन्छ। अहिले पनि यो क्षेत्रमा कंकाली माताको ठूलो महिमा छ भनिन्छ। त्यसै गरी चिताएको फल देवीले पूरा गर्छिन् भन्ने जनविश्वास समेत रहेको छ।
पहिलादेखि अहिले यो सालमा धेरै पर्यटक म 2-4 यो कामको सिलसिलामा बसेको थियो। शनिबारको दिनौ 1000 देखि 1500 मान्छे बाहिरबाट आउँछ। अब त्यसको लागि पनि हामी व्यवस्थापन गरिराखेका छौँ। त्यहाँ एउटा पूजा अर्चना गर्नको लागि बेलुका बिहानै आरती, जस्तै हरिद्वारमा तपाईँ गयो सक्नु होला भने हेर्नु होला, बिहानै र बेलुका गङ्गाको आरती हुन्छ। त्यहाँ पनि कंकाली मन्दिरमा हामी आरतीको एउटा छिटै व्यवस्था गर्छौँ। अहिले त्यो 2टा बोट पनि राखेका छौँ। मान्छेहरू पर्यटक आउँछ भने त्यसलाई घुम्नको लागि, त्यो पानीमा विहार गर्नको लागि, राम्रो वातावरणको लागि आउँदो दिनमा एउटा स्टिमर किनेर त्यहाँ राख्ने हामी पनि प्लानिङ गरेका छौँ।
कंकाली मन्दिर प्राङ्गणमा विभिन्न देवी देवताका अन्य मन्दिरहरू पनि रहेका छन्। प्राङ्गणमा रहेका मानसाराम बाबाको मन्दिर 3 मिटर उचाइ र 5.47 मिटरको चतुर्कोणाकारमा निर्माण गरिएको छ। मन्दिरभित्र मानसाराम बाबाको समाधि स्थल छ। समाधि अगाडि एक जोर खराउ छ, जसलाई मानसा बाबाको खराउ भनी पूजा गरिन्छ। प्राङ्गणमा शिव, पार्वती, हनुमान, विष्णु, विश्वकर्माको मन्दिर रहेका छन्।
कंकाली मन्दिर त धेरै पुरानो इतिहास बोकेको मन्दिर हो। त्यो मन्दिरको प्राङ्गणमा तपाईको कंकाली मन्दिर, मनसा बाबा मन्दिर, तपाईको विष्णु मन्दिर, तपाईको यो धेरै मन्दिरहरू छन्।
कंकाली मन्दिरदेखि करिब 1.5 माइलको पश्चिम दूरीमा रहेको छ रानीवास, जहाँ राम जानकीको मन्दिर छ। जङ्गबहादुर राणाका छोरा जीतजङले विक्रम सम्मत 1935मा आमा हिरण्य कुमारी सती जाने बेलामा व्यक्त गरेको इच्छा बमोजिम यो मन्दिरको निर्माण भएको थियो, जुन यहाँको घण्टामा समेत उल्लेख छ। मूल मन्दिर भने 3 तहको पेटी माथि बनेको छ। मन्दिरभित्र राम, सीता र लक्ष्मणका धातुका प्रतिमाहरू प्रतिष्ठापित छन्। अगाडि जङ्गबहादुर, हिरण्य कुमारी लगायत परिवारका सदस्यहरूको प्रतिमा रहेका छन्।
पहिला 2224 बेलादेखि यहाँ राजा शिवसिंहको पालीमा यो राम जानकी मन्दिर थियो र त्यसपछि नामदेवजी पनि आउनुभयो, त्यो उहाँको पालीमा पनि यहाँ राम जानकी मन्दिर र हाम्रो जङ्गबहादुर महाराजज्यू 1838मा आएर हेभन्दा 9 हात अग्लो मन्दिर काठको नै बनाउनु भयो। त्यो प्रमाणै छ, आजसम्म इटमा लेखेर राखेको छ। र त्यसपछि 1935मा हाम्रो जङ्गबहादुरको कान्छो छोरो जितजङ भनेर उहाँले नै बनाउनु भएको छ। उहाँको शिला यो जङ्गबहादुर महाराजको, उहाँको पत्नी, 2टा छोरी र एउटा कान्छो छोरो।
जङ्गबहादुर राणा जङ्गबहादुर पहिले यहाँ शिकार खेल्न आउनुहुन्थ्यो। और शिकार खेल्दा खेल्दै यहाँ एउटा बासको रूपमा पनि शिकार खेल्ने, यहाँ बास बस्ने, अनि फेरि जाने, फेरि बास बस्ने, शिकार खेल्ने। अब यहाँबाट जाँदाखेरि पत्रहट्टामा उहाँको मृत्यु भयो जङ्गबहादुरको। अनि छोरो थियो जगतजङ। अब त्यसको बुवाको नाउँमा पनि यो मन्दिर निर्माण गरिदियो। यो मन्दिर विशाल मन्दिर त्यो उनको छोरोले बनाएको।
मन्दिरको प्राङ्गण वरिपरि 2 तलामा चतुष्कोणाकारका धर्मशाला बनेका छन्। मन्दिर निर्माणमा त्यहाँका भग्नावशेषहरू प्रयोग भएको छ। समय समयमा प्राप्त भएको मूर्तिले सिमरनगढको महत्त्वलाई झन बढाएको छ। यहाँका मूर्तिकलाका रचनाहरूले सिमरनगढको सांस्कृतिक समृद्धिलाई पुष्टि गर्दछ। यहाँको मूर्तिकलाले आर्थिक रूपले समृद्ध यो राज्यमा कला र साहित्यले भरपूर उन्नति गर्ने मौका पाएको स्पष्ट हुन्छ। केही वर्ष अगाडि पुरातत्व विभागको सक्रियतामा कंकाली मन्दिर परिसरका मूर्तिहरूलाई मन्दिर परिसरमै घर बनाई संग्रहित गरिएको छ। त्यसै गरी सिमरनगढका केही मूर्ति र दरबारका अवशेषलाई राष्ट्रिय संग्रहालय छाउनीमा संग्रहित गरिएको छ। सिमरनगढको तोरणद्वारको टुक्रा संग्रहालयको भित्री गेटमै राखिएको छ। यस क्षेत्रमा अनेकन पोखरी र इनारहरू रहेका छन्, जसमध्ये इसरा, झरौखरा, राजाबादा, मनहरवा, आमवा, हथाइया प्रमुख छन्। इसारा पोखरी कंकाली मन्दिरको अगाडि छ। यो पोखरीको नाम राजा शिवसिंहकी रानी इसाराको नामबाट राखिएको छ। रानीवास मन्दिरको 1 किलोमिटर दूरीमा दक्षिणतर्फ खजहरी गाउँ छ। कर्नाट वंशी राजाहरूले खजाना राख्ने ठाउँ भएकाले यस ठाउँको नाम खजहनी भएको जनविश्वास छ। सो ठाउँमा अहिले पनि खेत, कुलो, माछा पोखरी खन्ने क्रममा पुरातात्विक वस्तु तथा मूर्ति भेट्न सकिन्छ। शान्ति, ऐश्वर्य र करुणाले धपक्क बलेको अलौकिक भाव र मुस्कानयुक्त चिल्ला काला ढुङ्गामा कुँदिएका मूर्तिहरूले यहाँको कलाको स्वतन्त्र र मौलिक शैलीलाई प्रस्तुत गर्दछ। मूर्तिमा पाइने आवरण र आभूषणले त छन् भक्ति रस र सौन्दर्य रस प्रदान गराउन सफल छ। मूर्तिहरूमा भाव अभिव्यक्तिको जुन मार्मिकता प्रदर्शित छ त्यसको जति प्रशंसा गरे पनि पूर्ण हुँदैन। थाहा पर्यटकीय सम्भावना बोकेको ऐतिहासिक र धार्मिक धरोहर सिम्रौनगढ दरबारसम्म पुग्नका लागि जनप्रतिनिधिहरू निर्वाचित भएर आएसँगै बाटोको सहज व्यवस्था भएको छ। सडक सुविधाका लागि नगरले पहल गरेसँगै आगन्तुकलाई केही सहज भएको छ।
मन्दिरको फुटपाथ निर्माण गरिराखेको छ। मन्दिरको फुटपाथ निर्माणमा तपाईको ब्लक लगाएर त्यो सौन्दर्यीकरण मन्दिरको भविष्य बाहिरबाट जुन पर्यटक आउँछ त्यो राम्रो कसरी हेर्न सकिन्छ, त्यसको आउने जाने केही कठिनाइ हुँदैन। त्यहाँ बस्नको लागि आउने जाने हेर्नको लागि त्यो कंकाली मन्दिरमा गरिराखेको छ।
सिम्रौनगढका बारेमा अहिलेसम्म स्वदेशी र विदेशी पुरातत्वविदद्वारा धेरै अनुसन्धान भएका छन्। यी अनुसन्धानहरूले सिम्रौनगढ कुनै बेला दक्षिण एसियाका समुन्नत राज्यहरू मध्येको एक राज्य तिरहुतको राजधानी रहेको प्रमाणित भइसकेको छ। तर उत्खनन हुन बाँकी नै रहेकाले तत्कालीन राजधानी सिम्रौनगढका राजाहरूले राखेका आधिकारिक अभिलेख फेला पर्न सकेका छैनन्। तर उनीहरूका पालामा बनेका पोखरी, मूर्ति, कंकालिनी मन्दिर, रानीवास दरबार लगायतका सामग्रीहरू अहिले पनि साक्षीको रूपमा रहेका छन्। यहाँ टाढा टाढाबाट बास बस्न आउने पर्यटकहरूका लागि पनि राम्रो होटल अथवा आवास गृहको अभाव छ। सुविधा सम्पन्न होटल, होमस्टे निर्माणका लागि सिम्रौनगढ उद्योग वाणिज्य संघले आवश्यक पहल गरिरहेको छ।
त्यो बस्नको लागि त अहिले तत्काल 2वटा होटल छ। अरू पनि बनाउनको लागि सोचिरहेछ यहाँको व्यापारीहरूले, बनाउँछ भविष्यमा पनि। अनि यहाँ एउटा के छ हजुर कि हाम्रो सिम्रौनगढमा भारतबाट मेन आउने चाहिँ भारतबाट नै हो बढी पर्यटक। त्यसको लागि पहिला यहाँ छोटी भन्सार थिएन। भर्खर हामी यो 1 महिना जति पहिला सञ्चालन गराएछौँ। तर सरकारसँग पनि पहल गरेका छौँ कि कम्तीमा यहाँ मूल भन्सार होस्। मूल भन्सार भइदिएको भए गाडीको आवत जावत अनि चाहिँ इन्ट्री गरेर होस् या भन्सार गरेर होस् त्यो हिसाबले पनि यहाँ आउँछ। सरकारले पनि राजस्व उठ्छ त्यसबाट अनि देशको आम्दानी पुँजी हुन्छ। हाम्रो सिम्रौनगढको पनि विकास हुन्छ अनि पर्यटकहरू पनि बढी यहाँ आवत जावत गर्छ।
यस क्षेत्रको संरक्षण र प्रवर्धनका निम्ति बृहत योजनाको आवश्यकता देखिन्छ। कला संस्कृतिको अंकुत भण्डारको रूपमा रहेको यस क्षेत्रको उत्खनन र न्यायोचित मूल्याङ्कन नगरिएसम्म नेपालको कलाकृतिको इतिहासको खोजी अधुरो नै रहने प्रश्न छ, जसका लागि गुठी संस्थान, पुरातत्व विभाग जस्ता निकायहरूको भूमिका महत्त्वपूर्ण रहन सक्छ।
सिम्रौनगढ उद्योग वाणिज्य संघबाट पनि यसमा देशमा अनि पर्यटक मन्त्रालयमा पनि हामी पठाएछौँ कि यहाँ जसरी भए पनि यहाँको पहिला हाम्रो सिम्रौनगढमा सबै सम्पदा छँदैछ तर तिनीहरू लोप हुँदैछ। त्यसको लागि हामी पर्यटक मन्त्रालयमा, अर्थ मन्त्रालयमा पटक पटक बारम्बार चाहिँ हामी आफ्नो लिखित रूपमा पत्रहरू पठाएछौँ कि सरकारबाट पहल होस्, यसलाई जसरी जे जस्तो छ त्यसले व्यवस्थित गरोस् अनि राम्रो हेर्न भइदिएको भए पर्यटकहरू त्यहाँ आफै आउँछ नि। त्यसको लागि हामी उद्योग वाणिज्य संघबाट धेरै पहल पनि गरेका छौँ। पहल फेरि गर्नको लागि अनि एउटा टिम बनाएर हामी सोचिरहेछौँ कि यसको लागि एकचोटि माथि केन्द्रमा काठमाडौँ गएर एकचोटि पर्यटन मन्त्रालयमा गएर बसेर यसको कुरा राखेर अर्थमन्त्री कहाँ पनि जाओस्, प्रधानमन्त्री कहाँ पनि जाओस्, उहाँहरूको ध्यान हो कि यो सिम्रौनगढको पर्यटक स्थल कसरी राम्रोसँग यो यसको विकास होस् भनेर हामी पहल पनि गर्दैछौँ। हजुर
मंदिर के हमनी के निर्वास सिमरावनगढ़ कंकाली अस्थाना उ सब
जगह के हमनी के अच्छा विकास अच्छा सुंदर देखे के चाहतनी काहे तो मंदिर मैठबा इतना दिन से अभी नहीं सही बनी आ कंकाली आस्थाना के हमनी के नेपाल के शान है हमनी के नेपाल के शान के हमनी के अच्छा से आवरी स्वर्ग बनाई आ ऐसे आवरी सुंदर विकास करी
ऐतिहासिक सांस्कृतिक र पुरातात्विक महत्व बोकेको सिम्रौनगढको संरक्षण र प्रवर्धन पक्ष केही कमजोर भने अवश्य छ तर समग्र मिथिलाको कला संस्कृतिको परिचय दिन सफल यहाँका पुरातात्विक सम्पदाहरू संरक्षणका लागि मध्य प्रदेश सरकारले रकम नै विनियोजन गरेर काम सुरु गरेको छ बृहत गाउँ पर्यटनको सम्भावना बोकेको यस क्षेत्रको बहुमूल्य वस्तुलाई साँच्चै मूल्यवान बनाउन प्रदेश सरकार लागि परेको छ मर्मत सम्हारको अभावमा मन्दिर जीर्ण बन्दै गइरहेका बेला प्रदेश सरकारले गरेको यो पहल र प्रयास साँच्चै प्रशंसनीय छ मानव अतीतलाई छातीमा समेटेर ऐतिहासिक धरोहरलाई सुरक्षित राख्न सफल सिम्रौनगढ दरबार घुमौं मधेस चिनाऊ
For centuries, the Kumail community of Nepal has lived closely tied to the earth, shaping clay, cultivating land, and sustaining a cultural identity rooted in indigenous skill, craft, and tradition. Recognized as one of Nepal's marginalized indigenous nationalities, the Kumails traditionally settle in the hilly regions and inner Tarai plains. Cultural practices and oral histories indicate that they have been part of Nepal's civilization since ancient times. As inhabitants of Nepal's fertile river valleys and plains, the Kumails have carried forward a deep-rooted tradition of earthenware craftsmanship, agriculture, and a rich cultural heritage that reflects centuries of resilience and adaptation. Their pottery has been more than household utility. It has been a marker of identity, livelihood, and cultural continuity. Today, as modern vessels replace handmade earthen vessels, the Kumals find themselves preserving not only a profession but a heritage passed down through generations. According to an ancient belief, clay work began at the time of creation when Prajapati, the son of Brahma, molded the first earthen vessel using Sudarshan Chakra of Lord Vishnu. The Sanskrit term Kumbhakar, meaning pot maker, gradually transformed, becoming Kumhar and eventually Kumal. Even today, pottery remains spiritually and culturally significant for the community. In Kumal settlements, soil is not just the ground beneath their feet. It is raw material, cultural memory, and a symbol of survival. The Kumal population is spread mainly across central Tarai districts of Nepal, namely across Lumbini, Gandaki, and Bagmati provinces. Traditionally, they rely on two main occupations, agriculture and pottery. Farms provided daily sustenance, while pottery supported household needs and served as a source of income. Community life historically revolved around extended family systems, with shared labor, collective participation in rituals, and a strong sense of belonging to ancestral land. Pottery for the Kumals is a detailed, multi-stage skill passed down through generations. The process begins with identifying the right soil. Black clay, the Kalu Matu, was traditionally preferred for its strength and texture. It was collected near riverbanks, ponds, and settled waterbeds. Among Tharu Kumals, this clay is also known as Kamaune Matu, meaning clay that earns. Clay is soaked, softened, and thoroughly kneaded. Using a tool called pasur, potters slice and cleanse the clay to remove impurities. In earlier times, bamboo tools were used instead of iron. The prepared clay is stored covered, maintaining moisture for shaping. The chakra or potter's wheel remains central to Kumal identity. Hands center the clay, fingers guide it, and experience shapes it. Tools like thap and pitani help refine form and smooth surface. Large vessels, water jars, grand pots, cooking pots, and ritual vessels were once part of every Nepali household, each bearing the touch of Kumal craftsmanship. Freshly formed pots are cut from the wheel with thread or leaf strips and set to dry, first in shade to prevent cracks, then under the sun. A reddish clay called Kabish Matu is applied for finish and strength. The firing structure, Ava or Auri, is built from wood, straw, husk, and cow dung. Pots are stacked carefully, forming a dome-like structure covered with hay and soil. The firing process takes up to 3 days. The Kumals maintain rich intangible heritage through customs, rituals, music, and dance. The Keli dance is one of the most distinctive cultural expressions of the Kumals. Traditionally performed by men dressed as women, it is associated with community celebrations and spiritual belief. The performance concludes with blessings for the household hosting the event. Marriage traditionally takes place within the community, though intercaste marriage, particularly with Magar communities, has become common.
Ada nen budi ciura. Dari pokoknya nen budi ciura. Pokoknya budi ciura.
Samdi fight is also popular in this culture, where fathers of bride and groom go through a physical battle as a part of entertainment. A child's naming ceremony called Nwaran takes place on the 9th day for daughters and 11th day for sons, where a young unmarried girl narrates the name referred by the priest. Gon Ponni, a ritual where the mother burns bedding used during childbirth, is followed by baths. The child is then named and welcomed.
बोलाउने नाम आशिष कुमाल, देवताको नाम गोविन्द कुमाल, मेरो नाम सन्तोष कुमाल.
Grandmothers carry babies around the home, chasing the newborn with a catapult, symbolically granting strength and sealing belonging. That rites emphasize purity, remembrance, and respect. The eldest son, or the one performing final rites, often standing inside a fishing net, performs final rites reflecting links to water-based livelihood and spiritual symbolism. Among the many Kumal rituals, ancestral worship, Kul Puja is considered the most important. It is performed in remembrance of those deceased in the family and is also known as Pitri Puja. The Kul Puja honors ancestors annually, while the worship of Singh Devta, urn-shaped forest deities, highlights ties to nature and livestock protection. The Kumal people speak their own indigenous language, Kumal, which belongs to the Tibeto-Burman family. However, due to increasing influence of Nepali language and modernization, the use of Kumal language has been declining, and community efforts continue to revive it through cultural programs and schools. Most Kumals practice Hinduism, worshipping deities such as Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and local protective gods and goddesses. Ancestral worship and belief in nature spirits hold deep cultural importance. Traditional attire for men includes white clothing and the dhaka topi, while women wear black blouses, traditional skirts, and red shawls, often adorned with local jewelry. With industrial materials such as aluminum, steel, and plastic replacing clay vessels, the demand for traditional pottery has sharply declined. Many Kumal families have moved to agriculture, labor, service work, or small businesses. Modern education and new employment opportunities are reshaping the choices of younger generations. Their hands do not merely shape clay, they sculpt culture, memory, and the foundation of Nepal's artistic soul. The Kumail community stands at a historic crossroads between tradition and modernity, memory and transition. Their identity is closely tied to clay, yet their future relies on adapting to changing socio-economic landscapes. Their story is not only about pottery, but resilience of a people who shaped Nepal's cultural foundation long before industry and technology. The preservation of Kumail heritage is not a matter of nostalgia. It is a recognition of indigenous knowledge, cultural diversity, and history shaped by hands that turn earth into life. If the story of Nepal is one of civilizations formed by soil and river, then the Kumail legacy will always remain at its foundation.
Unseasonal rain and hail disrupt life across Nepal. Landslides blocked highways and stranded passengers highlight pre-monsoon weather challenges. Nepal marks Eid al-Fitr with nationwide public holiday. Muslim community celebrates the festival with prayers, charity and festive gatherings. Endangered Kisan community in Jhapa struggles for rights. Unregistered members face exclusion from citizenship and other government support. Iran launches missile strikes on Diego Garcia and Natanz. Regional conflict escalates as US and Israel respond amid rising global tensions. Deadly fire at South Korea car parts plant kills 11, dozens injured and several missing as firefighters battle blaze in Daejeon. And Japan clinches third AFC Women's Asia Cup title. Maika Hamano's early goal secures 1-0 victory over host Australia in record-breaking final. Good evening, I'm Suviksha Rajak and you're watching NTV World News Hour, coming up to you live at Kathmandu at 2200 hours Nepal time. Now, the news in details. Unseasonal rain, thunderstorms and hailstorm have swept across Nepal in recent days, disrupting daily life and raising concerns among residents. According to the Department of Hydrology and Meteorology, the sudden weather change is driven by active westerly winds, bringing widespread rainfall, lightning, snowfall in higher regions and strong winds across the country. The impact has been significant, with landslides and slippery roads affecting transport, highways blocked in multiple districts and more than 250 passengers stranded in eastern Rukum due to heavy snowfall. While hailstorms have damaged crops in some hilly areas, the rainfall has also brought relief to farmers struggling with prolonged dry conditions, particularly in parts of Lumbini province that recorded heavy rainfall. Authorities say conditions are expected to gradually improve from Sunday, but have urged the public to remain cautious as pre-monsoon weather patterns, including storms and lightning, are likely to continue. We will see more on this in our issue of the day. Now, Nepal has marked Eid al-Fitr, one of the most important festivals for Muslim community worldwide. The government announced the holiday to allow wider participation, even as some essential services remain operational. Across the country, Muslims gathered at mosques and Eidgahs, including the Khantagar area in Kathmandu, to offer special prayers and celebrate the end of the holy month of Ramadan. The festival is also marked by family visits, seeking blessings from elders and giving charity to the poor and needy, reflecting its core values of compassion and community. Eid al-Fitr is observed following the sighting of the new moon, which signals the conclusion of Ramadan in the Islamic lunar calendar. The District Administration Office in Kapilvastu has imposed an indefinite prohibitory order in Maharajganj Bardawa area to prevent further communal tension. The order bans gatherings, meetings, processions and demonstrations across locations including Bargadi Bridge, Bahadurganj Chowk, Maharajganj Bazar and Hardauna, effective from 2 p.m. until further notice. The move comes as a clash between Hindu and Muslim communities during Navaratri and Eid celebrations in Ward 2 and 3 of Maharajganj, which left 6 people, including a child, injured. Authorities say the restrictions aims to prevent the dispute from escalating further. Now, Nepal's endangered Kisan community concentrated in Jhapa district continues to face serious challenges in accessing basic rights and services despite constitutional protections. With a population of just 1,479, many members remain unregistered in official records, leaving them excluded from essential services such as citizenship, education and healthcare. While the government provides a monthly social security allowance to marginalized groups, including the Kisan community, members say financial aid alone has not improved their living conditions. Long-standing social exclusion and gaps in policy implementation have hindered meaningful inclusion, raising questions about when the Kisan will have full representation in national policy making. We will delve deeper on this in our cover story segment later in the bulletin. Iran reportedly launched 2 missiles at the joint UK-US military base in Diego Garcia, though the attack was unsuccessful and occurred before the UK announced expanded American use of its bases. At the same time, Iran said its Natanz nuclear facility had been targeted again, but assured there was no risk to nearby populations. Iran's foreign minister expressed doubt that the U.S. intends to de-escalate, despite President Trump suggesting the possibility of winding down the conflict. Meanwhile, the U.S. announced it would temporarily lift sanctions on Iranian oil stranded at sea, an effort to stabilize global energy prices amid the ongoing tensions. Thousands of Iranians gathered for Eid al-Fitr prayers despite the ongoing war with the US and Israel. with the new supreme leader staying out of public view and other officials leading ceremonies. At the same time, the conflict escalated with US and Israel strikes hitting Iran's Natanz nuclear facility, though no radiation leaks were reported. The war, now several weeks in, has disrupted global energy markets, driven up oil prices and strained international relations. The US says it may soon scale back operations, but is also deploying more troops, suggesting possible further escalation. Meanwhile, fighting continues across the region, including strikes in Iran, Israel and Lebanon, showing the conflict is still intensifying despite talk of winding down. Now, in the other news, South Korean authorities say 11 people were killed when a huge fire engulfed a car parts plant in the central city of Daejeon. 3 others are still missing and 59 were injured. Videos show huge flames and thick smoke pouring from the building, with firefighters struggling to contain the blaze. There were 170 workers inside when it broke out. Firefighters say they were unable to enter the structure earlier due to concerns it would collapse. There was also a risk of igniting sodium stored there. An overnight search began for those missing after the building was deemed safe to enter. Authorities did not immediately confirm the cause of the blaze, but said it appeared to have spread rapidly. Japan won the AFC Women's Asia Cup for a third time after defeating host Australia 1-0 in the 2026 final Saturday night. Maika Hamada scored the only goal with a long-range strike in the 17th minute as Japan triumphed in front of a crowd of 74,397 at Sydney Stadium, Australia, a record for a Women's Asia Cup match. After an opening 15 minutes in which Australia created the better chances, Hamada broke the deadlock when she received the ball with her back to goal on the left edge of the penalty area, turned and fired a dipping shot into the bottom right corner. The strike beyond the outstretched arms of Australia's Mackenzie Arnold proved decisive in a match in which the host created repeated opportunities but failed to convert. Australia's best chance to equalize came in the 89th minute when Ellie Carpenter's cross from the right found Elena Kennedy, whose header toward the top left corner was caught by a diving Ayaka Yamashita. A win kept a dominant tournament for Japan, which scored 29 goals and conceded only 1 in 6 matches. It was the third time Japan had beaten Australia 1-0 in Women's Asian Cup final, having previously done to win consecutive titles in 2014 and 2018. Unseasonal rain, hailstorms and snowfall have battered Nepal, disrupting highways, stranding passengers and damaging crops. Authorities warn that while conditions may ease from Sunday, pre-monsoon storms and lightning remains a serious risk. We will be looking into this in tonight's Issue of the Day segment after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World News Hour, and it's time for our Issue of the Day segment. Recent unseasonal rain, thunderstorms and hailstorms have affected many parts of Nepal, causing disruptions to daily life and concern among residents. Experts say the sudden change is due to active westerly winds, bringing rain, lightning, strong winds and even snowfall in higher areas. The severe weather has led to landslides, blocked roads and stranded passengers in eastern Rukum, while also damaging crops in some regions. However, the rainfall has helped ease dry conditions for farmers, and officials expect the weather to gradually improve from Sunday, though cautious is still advised. The Mid-Hill Highway, which was blocked due to snowfall, has been reopened. Hundreds of passengers were stranded on the road due to continuous rain and snowfall in Rukum East since yesterday. The Rukum-Patali-Thalne road section in Bhume Rural Municipality 1, which was completely closed due to snowfall since the afternoon, has been reopened after 9 hours with the joint efforts of the local level and the police. Police Inspector Lal Bahadur Bikab informed that the road has been reopened after the road blockage was lifted. Vehicles, including night buses leaving from Kathmandu, were stranded in the area as the road was closed. Additional problems arose in rescue and coordination due to disruption of telecommunication services and internet in the upper parts of the district. Heavy rainfall has blocked the Daune Road section in Navalprasi, East District of Nepal. The highway at Daune Bazaar became muddy and slippery during ongoing maintenance, halting traffic since Friday. Police confirmed that continuous rain has obstructed both sides of Narayanghat-Butwal highway. Authorities have restricted heavy cargo vehicles at night until Sunday, diverting them to Triveni Chowk and Dumkibas Bazaar. Passenger and emergency vehicles are allowed to operate with priority as road expansion and repair continue. Traffic has resumed on the Palpa-Butwal section along the Siddharth Highway. Rainfall had halted vehicular movement owing to mud, water and rockfall risk. Police confirmed that the Dobhan-Siddhababa stretch is the most vulnerable area. Fallen rocks were cleared, enabling vehicles to continue toward their destinations. The Siddhartha Highway remains a crucial link between the hills and the Tarai. A hailstorm with strong winds has damaged crops in Salyan district. Farmers in Kapurkot reported heavy losses in vegetables, wheat and barley. Tomato seedlings prepared for cultivation were completely destroyed. Authorities estimate nearly 50% damage to wheat and barley crops. The district is colder after the hailstorm and officials are still assessing the full extent of losses. Coming up in tonight's cover story, Nepal's constitution promises inclusion and justice, yet the Kisan community in the East still struggles for recognition. Their fight for access and dignity highlights the gap between constitutional ideas and lived realities. Into the look after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching NTV World News Hour. Now it's time for our cover story. Nepal's constitution guarantees inclusion and social justice for its citizens, but for one of the country's smallest indigenous communities, those promises remain largely out of reach. In eastern Nepal, the Kisan community, one among the 59 indigenous groups in the country, continues to struggle for recognition, access and dignity. Our teammate Rojina Rai with our local correspondent Dikesh Lama digs deeper.
The Kisan community, an endangered indigenous group concentrated in झापा district, remains on the margins of Nepal's development story. Despite constitutional safeguards, many still lack the most basic form of recognition, official documentation. With a population of just over 1,400, generations of Kisan families have remained unregistered in government records. Without citizenship and formal identification, access to education, healthcare, and social security remains severely limited. Government policy does provide a monthly social security allowance of 4,000 rupees to endangered and marginalized communities, including the Kisan. But community members say financial support alone cannot address deeper structural challenges. Education gaps, limited healthcare access, poor infrastructure, and lack of land rights continue to define everyday life. For many, social inclusion remains more promises than the reality.
वंशजको नागरिकता पाउनुपर्ने पहिलादेखि बसेको किसान जाति अब कतिपयको अहिले के अरे जन्मसिद्ध नागरिकता छ हैन त्यो जन्मसिद्ध नागरिकको छोराछोरीले उनीहरु चाहिँ अहिले भत्ताबाट वञ्चित छन् के किन उनीहरुसँग नागरिकता छैन नि त हैन त्यो एउटा समस्या भयो हैन अब अरु समस्या त त्यही हो बेरोजगारीको समस्या छ हैन.
In the 21st century, the Kisan community still finds itself left behind, caught between constitutional assurance and lived exclusion. As Nepal pushes forward on its development goals, questions remain over who is being left behind. For the Kisan community, the struggle is not just about survival, but about being seen, heard, and included. Rojina Rai with local correspondent Dikesh Lama reporting for NTV World.
In this context, we asked the Kisan community what are their expectations from the new government. Let's have a look at what they say.
बुढो छैन अब एक्लै कमाएर खानु पर्यो पाल्ने मान्छे छैन त्यो त समस्या भनेको मेरो छैन खेतीपाती त्यही जनवन गरेर खायो
धाइजनमा जन्मेको उहाँबाट हडिया खोलाले खेदाए अनि त्यहाँबाट आएर धाइजनमा बसेको थियो ओरतिर त्यहाँबाट यहाँ आउने बित्तिकै मोही लागु भयो अनि त्यताबाट बाँधिएर आएको
हाम्रो यहाँ धेरै समस्या छ नि कसैको नागरिकता बनाएको छैन कसैको उयो घरै राम्रो छैन भाडा घरमा बस्छ खोलाले बगाउन आँटिसकेको घर सामान सबैहरू कसैको घरमा नालै छैन नाला जता चाहियो त्यता छैन
यो सरकारले अब यो खोला किनारीमा तटबन्धन लगाइदिए हुन्थ्यो अब यो स्कुल केटाकेटी पढ्नु खोज्नेले निशुल्कको स्कुल पढ्नु पाए हुन्थे अब पढौँ भने खेतीबारी छैन त्यही खोलामै रोजीरोटी गरेर खाइन्छ स्कुलको केटाकेटीको फिस कता तिर्नु के हो सरकारले चाहिँ अब यो गरिब दुखीलाई चाहिँ केटाकेटीलाई भविष्यको लागि स्कुल चाहिँ फ्री गरिदिनु पाए सरकारी स्कुल चाहिँ धेरै धेरै राम्रो हुन्थ्यो
बसोबास गर्ने ठाउँ चाहिँ चाहियो यसो कहीँ बसाइदिने भएदेखि यसो मजदुरी गरेर पनि खाइन्थ्यो
That was our cover story of the day. On to other news now. Rashtriya Swatantra Party RSP is preparing to form a government. There is also interest in how the party, which is close to a 2/3 majority, will run the government and manage it. RSP has stated that preparations are underway, so the senior party leader Balendra Shah will run the government and party president Ravi Lamichhane will lead the organizational leadership of the party as agreed before the election. Here's a report.
Rashtriya Swatantra Party, which secured a majority in Nepal's March 5 House of Representatives election, has devised a strategy to separate the management of the government from that of the party organization. In Nepal, the traditional practice among political parties is that the leader of the parliamentary party, usually the candidate whose party wins a majority, becomes the prime minister. However, in the Rashtriya Swatantra Party, President Ravi Lamichhane will handle only the organizational leadership of the party, while senior party leader Balendra Shah will assume the role of leading the government. RSP argues that the country requires both a stable government and a strong party organization, and has therefore deliberately divided the leadership roles.
सभापतिज्यू सरकारमा नजाने र सरकारमा चाहिँ वरिष्ठ नेता बालेन्द्र शाहज्यूको नेतृत्वमा जाने भन्ने जुन एउटा तयारी छ यसले पनि पार्टी र सरकार बीचको चाहिँ समन्वय एकदम प्रगाढ बनाउँछ जस्तो लाग्छ.
According to the RSP statute, the leader of the parliamentary party is typically elected by ordinary party members from among candidates before an election. However, no such election was held prior to this House of Representatives election. Instead, the party relies on a 7-point agreement reached between Balendra Shah and the RSP at the time of the party's formation, which serves as the basis for selecting the Prime Minister. The party's General Secretary, Kabindra Burlakoti, stated that the Prime Minister will be chosen on the basis of political consensus.
बालेन्द्र शाहज्यूसँग त्यतिखेरकै सहमतिमा प्रधानमन्त्रीको प्रस्तावित उम्मेदवारको रूपमा अगाडि सार्ने गरी निर्णय भएको छ र त्यो सहमतिको आधारमा केन्द्रीय समितिले त्यसलाई अनुमोदन पनि गरेको छ र केन्द्रीय समितिले अनुमोदन गरिसकेको कारणले गर्दाखेरि त्यो एउटा राजनीतिक दस्तावेजको रूपमा रहन्छ र केन्द्रीय समितिले नै सोही अनुसार संसदीय दलको नेता बनाउने गरी प्रस्ताव चाहिँ संसदीय दलमा पठाउँछ र संसदीय दलले केन्द्रीय समितिको प्रस्ताव अनुसारको संसदीय दलको नेता चयन गर्ने र प्रधानमन्त्री चाहिँ संसदीय दलको नेता हुने जस्तो गरी जान्छ. यो चाहिँ राजनीतिक सहमतिबाट आइसकेपछि त्यो केन्द्रीय समितिले पारित गरिसके पछाडि त्यसैले नै ओभररुल गर्छ र विधानको व्यवस्थालाई पनि समेटेर अगाडि बढ्छ. यो
RSP, having 182 out of the 275 seats in the House of Representatives, is preparing to form a government under Article 76, Clause 1 of Nepal's constitution, based on a single-party majority. The party plans to form an initial cabinet of 11 to 18 members, with ministries assigned according to expertise. The government is expected to be officially formed on March 27, immediately following the oath-taking of lawmakers on March 26.
A new report has found 350 cases of child rights violations during and after Nepal's 2026 House of Representatives elections, raising concerns about the protection of the children in the electoral process. The study by Children as Zone of Peace National Campaign Nepal documented widespread misuse of children in campaign activities, including rallies, publicity drives and political messaging both offline and on social media. Serious incidents were also recorded, including the death of a 4-year-old girl in a vehicle accident and injuries to 2 children in a suspected explosion during the election period. The report further highlights structural issues, noting that the majority of polling stations were set up in schools, challenging their status as politically neutral and child-friendly spaces. While authorities say violations were lower than in previous elections, rights groups are urging stronger enforcement, clearer guidelines and greater accountability to prevent the political use of children. In the global West, discrimination has often been about the color of one's skin, while in Nepal, discrimination has been rooted in caste. The family one is born into, 2 different social structures but a shared battle against same human indignity. Today, as the world marks the International Day for Elimination of Racial Discrimination, we examine how this day resonates differently in Nepal and what history tells us about the path forward. Our teammate Diksha Awasthi looks deeper into it.
March 21 is observed globally as the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. The day honors the memory of Sharpeville, South Africa, where in 1960, police opened fire on a peaceful protest against apartheid, killing 69 people. A massacre that galvanized the global movement against institutionalized racism. In the history of racial discrimination, one case stands out in legal history. That is Brown versus Board of Education, decided by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1954. In this case, the Supreme Court of the U.S. unanimously declared that racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional, ruling that separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. That judgment struck down legal apartheid in America, opening school doors closed to black children for generations. Nepal's struggle mirrors that history, but through the lens of caste. Here too, for centuries, Dalits were forbidden from drawing water from the same taps used by the so-called upper caste. They were labeled untouchable, denied the dignity of being touched. The caste system created a hierarchy where birth determined the fate of humanity. Today in Kathmandu, this day was observed with that history in mind. Activists and Dalit community members gathered to demand not just legal equality, but social dignity that centuries of untouchability have denied them. Nepal has made legal progress as a signatory to ICERD, that is International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. It is bound by international law to eliminate caste-based discrimination. The Constitution of 2015 outlawed caste-based discrimination, and the Caste-Based Discrimination and Untouchability Offence and Punishment Act 2011 made such practices a criminal offence. Yet, the gap between law and reality persists. As Nepal observes this day, it reminds us legislation without implementation is merely ink on paper. The world remembers Sharpeville. America learned from Brown versus Board of Education. Now Nepal must go further, from making caste discrimination illegal to eradicating it completely.
Glaciers in the Hindu Kush Himalaya are disappearing at an alarming pace. Ice loss has doubled since 2000, and communities are already feeling the impact of climate change through floods and water stress. The region's rivers and people are under growing pressure as the melt accelerates. Our teammate Aprila Kisinglama looks into it more.
Glaciers in the Hindu Kush Himalaya are melting at an alarming and accelerating rate, raising serious concerns for water security across Asia. A new study by the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, ICIMOD, shows that ice loss in the region has doubled since 2000. The study says glaciers have thinned by up to 27 meters since 1975. The region, often called Asia's water tower, contains more than 63,700 glaciers spread across roughly 55,782 square kilometers, feeding at least 10 major river systems that support nearly 2 billion people. The report shows that glacier decline has been persistent and widespread. Over the past 50 years, around 89% of observed years recorded a net loss in glacier mass, indicating a long-term and consistent downward trend. Between 1990 and 2020 alone, glaciers in the region lost about 12% of their total area and 9% of their ice reserves. Smaller glaciers are shrinking the fastest, increasing immediate risks of water shortages and glacial lake outburst floods. The impact is not uniform. Some eastern mountain areas have lost up to 33% of glacier coverage in just 3 decades. Meanwhile, the largest overall losses are concentrated in the Indus, Ganges, and Brahmaputra basins, where over 74% of the region's glaciers are located. Larger glaciers, those exceeding 10 square kilometers, store around 40% of the region's total water reserves, making their decline a major long-term threat. Scientists warn that areas between 4,500 and 6,000 meters are highly vulnerable to rising temperatures, and impacts are already visible through more frequent flooding during monsoon seasons. For Nepal, this trajectory means increased risks to mountain communities, hydropower infrastructure, and water supply, as faster glacier melt heightens both short-term flood dangers and long-term water insecurity.
Now in the other news, the US dollar rate has surged to 150 rupees in Nepal. According to Nepal Rashtra Bank, the buying rate for a US dollar is set at 149.64 rupees, while the selling rate stands at 150.24 rupees. The euro is trading at 173.12 rupees for buying and 173.81 rupees for selling. The British pound sterling is quoted at 200 rupees 38 paisa for buying and 201 rupees 19 paisa for selling. Meanwhile, the Australian dollar is valued at 105 rupees 89 paisa for buying and 106 rupees 31 paisa for selling. The Canadian dollar is fixed at 109 rupees 4 paisa for buying and 109 rupees 48 paisa for selling. As per the Nepal Rashtra Bank, the rates reflect current international market trends and domestic demand. The sharp rise in the US dollar highlights growing pressure on Nepal's foreign exchange market. The 27th Flora Expo is currently underway at Prikuti Mandap under the slogan Flower Business for Clean Environment, Employment and Economic Prosperity, aiming to boost Nepal's flower industry and future exports. The exhibition showcases seasonal and cut flowers, compost fertilizers, seeds, drip irrigation systems and modern agricultural tools, providing both commercial opportunities and technical knowledge for visitors. Nepal's floriculture sector spans 270 hectares across 52 districts, attracting over 8.83 billion rupees in investment and generating employment for more than 53,500 people. Yet flower imports worth 127 million rupees continue to flow into the country. Organized by the Floriculture Association Nepal, the expo features 83 stalls, including 65 commercial outlets, and is expected to attract around 60,000 visitors, generating an estimated turnover of 250 million rupees. The event highlights efforts to expand the domestic flower business, promote economic development, and provide guidance on flower cultivation, gardening, and care for both enthusiasts and entrepreneurs. International updates lined up next, but before that, let's have a quick recap of our headlines. Unseasonal rain and hail disrupt life across Nepal. Landslides blocked highways and stranded passengers highlight pre-monsoon weather challenges. Nepal marks Eid al-Fitr with nationwide public holiday. Muslim community celebrates the festival with prayers, charity and festive gatherings. Endangered Kisan community in Jhapa struggles for rights. Unregistered members face exclusion from citizenship and other government support. Iran launches missile strikes on Diego Garcia and Natanz. Regional conflict escalates as US and Israel respond amid rising global tensions. Deadly fire at South Korean car parts plant killed 11 dozens, injured, several missing as firefighters battle flames in Daejeon. And Japan clinches third AFC Women's Asia Cup title. Maika Hamano's early goal secures 1-0 victory over host Australia in record-breaking final. Now in the international front, foreign ministers from 12 Arab and Islamic states met in Riyadh to address regional tensions, urging Iran to halt attacks and condemning Israel's expansionist policy. The ministers representing countries including Saudi Arabia, Egypt and Pakistan emphasized respect for sovereignty, non-interference and international law. They warned Iran that continued aggression would deepen isolation and incur political cost, while affirming support for Lebanon's territorial integrity and state-controlled weapons. The meeting follows heightened regional tensions after U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran and subsequent Iranian attacks on regional and Western interests. Ministers pledged ongoing coordination to protect security and stability. On Friday, marking Nowruz, Iran's supreme leader Mojtaba Khamenei outlined a New Year slogan promoting a residence economy in light of national unity and national security. He expressed condolences for recent conflicts, praised the unity of Iranians, and highlighted the need to strengthen infrastructure, public welfare, and regional relations, including with Afghanistan and Pakistan. Khamenei warned against Israeli false flag operations. Meanwhile, President Masoud Pezeshkian stated that Iran did not seek war with neighbors, blamed the US and Israel for tensions, and proposed a regional Islamic security framework to ensure peace and stability. A landmark trial is underway cover whether social media platforms like Meta and YouTube are responsible for addicting a young user and harming her mental health. The jury has begun considering damages, suggesting they may believe the platforms were negligently designed for failed to warn users. The case centers on a 20-year-old woman who says Instagram and YouTube fueled her depression and suicidal thoughts from a young age, though the defense points to family issues are another cause. Jurors must decide if the platforms were a substantial factor and how much they should pay. The outcome could set a major precedent for hundreds of similar lawsuits, challenging long-standing legal protections and raising broader concerns about the impact of social media on vulnerable youth. On Friday, India's patent expiration on semaglutide, the active ingredient in drugs like Ozempic, opened the door for low-cost generic versions. Indian pharmaceutical firms prepared launches immediately, potentially offering more than 50 brands and drastically reducing monthly cost from $161 to $236 to around $60. Clinics in Mumbai reported expectation of a surge in patients seeking treatment. Experts say cheaper access could benefit middle-income countries, including much of Africa, though they caution that obesity requires broader prevention efforts beyond medication. India's move marked a major shift in global obesity treatment access. We are going for another breather here. Next up, we have business updates.
The U.S. has temporarily lifted sanctions on some Iranian oil to help stabilize global energy markets amid rising prices caused by the war in Iran. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced a short-term waiver allowing the sale of about 140 million barrels of Iranian crude currently stranded at sea, effective until April 19. The move could divert oil to countries like India, Japan, and Malaysia, but experts warn it may have limited impact on prices and could inadvertently fund the Iranian government. Analysts also note challenges in preventing money from reaching Tehran, and questioned the policy's long-term effectiveness, highlighting the US's urgent need to address global supply shocks. On Thursday, Apple reported record earnings for the final quarter of last year, posting $42.1 billion in profit on $143.8 billion revenue. iPhone sales surged globally, reaching $85.2 billion, with $25.5 billion from China alone. Services revenue hit a new high of $30 billion. The company's CEO, Tim Cook, noted supply constraints due to high component costs. Apple also announced a partnership with Google to power next-generation AI features in Siri using Gemini technology and acquired AI startup QAI. Cuba has announced it will allow immigrants to invest in the country to help address its deep economic and energy crises, marking a major shift from its traditional anti-capitalist stance. However, many Cuban entrepreneurs in exile, especially in Miami, are skeptical, citing a lack of legal security, political concerns, and distrust of the government. While some see the move as a positive step and emphasize the importance of diaspora involvement, experts say major legal and economic reforms are needed to attract real investment. Others warn that Cuba remains an extremely risky environment due to weak infrastructure, unstable currency, and lack of rule of law. A San Francisco jury found Elon Musk deliberately misled investors during his 2024 $44 billion takeover of Twitter. His public statements about Twitter's user metrics and hints of backing out of the deal were deemed intentionally misleading, causing Twitter stock to drop $3 to $8 per share. Musk had argued that people misinterpreted his tweets, but the jury rejected this defense. The case underscores the legal consequences of influencing markets with public statements, even for high-profile figures. In Sao Tome and Principe, a new generation of cocoa farmers is helping restore degraded ecosystems while improving livelihoods with support from Food and Agriculture Organization. Farmers rely on cocoa as their main income and are benefiting from training, fair trade access, and cooperative support. Since 2019, over 8,000 hectares of agroforestry land have been restored with a goal of reaching 36,000 by the year 2030. The initiative promotes sustainable cocoa farming alongside forest conservation, including tree planting and improved techniques. Overall, the project has empowered farmers to protect forests, strengthen incomes, and build a more sustainable cocoa industry.
That was some business updates. Now we are moving on to sports. The Prime Minister's Cup National One-Day Men's Cricket Tournament, one of Nepal's premier domestic cricket competitions, has officially kicked off in Madhya Province. Organized by the Cricket Association of Nepal, CAN, the tournament showcases top provincial teams and departmental clubs, providing a platform for emerging talent to compete at a national level. The tournament was inaugurated by Minister for Sports Basanta Kushwaha, who highlighted the government's plans to prioritize sports infrastructure, including the construction of a new stadium in Janakpur, a city with growing interest in cricket. Heavy rainfall disrupted the opening day's matches, with Karnali versus Lumini Province and Biganj halted after 7 overs in Koshi versus Madhya Province in Janakpur cancelled entirely. All 4 teams were awarded 1 point each. The tournament not only promotes competitive cricket but also encourages regional representation with teams from provinces and key departmental clubs such as Tribhuvan Army Club and Nepal Police Club participating. On the second day, Tribhuvan Army Club faces Nepal Police Club while Bagmati Province takes on Armed Police Force Club at Mulpani Cricket Ground, with the champions set to receive a 1 million cash prize, reflecting the tournament's significance in Nepal's cricket calendar. Now the weather updates, first from across Nepal and then the world. This brings us to the end of this news bulletin, but before we wrap up, let's have a reminder of the headlines. Unseasonal rain and hail disrupt life across Nepal. Landslides, blocked highways and stranded passengers highlight pre-monsoon weather challenges. Nepal marks Eid al-Fitr with nationwide public holiday. Muslim community celebrates with the festival with prayers, charity and festive gatherings. Endangered Kisan community in Jhapa struggles for rights. Unregistered members face exclusion from citizenship and other government support. Iran launches missile strikes on Diego Garcia and Natanz. The regional conflict escalates as US and Israel respond amid rising global tensions. Deadly fire at South Korea car parts plant kills 11, dozens injured and several missing are firefighters. Battles blaze in danger. And Japan clinches third AFC Women's Asian Cup title. Maika Hamano's early goal secures 1-0 victory over host Australia in record-breaking final. That's all here for the moment in NTV World News Hour. I'm Suveksha Rajak and you're watching NTV World News Hour. Thank you for staying with us. Good night.